And we are live. Uh, Kyle, unfortunately, I cannot hear you, though. Can you guys hear?
I'm looking at the broadcast. It says live stream offline. Oh, here you
I
go.
hope you can hear me now.
We can hear
Good.
you now. Awesome.
Good.
Much better.
This genius did not hit his unmute button, so let's start all that over again.
Hi, welcome once again to the Non Sequitur Show. We are Kyle Curtis and Steve McRae. I'm the one with the working mic. Yay!
Hump day.
Yes.
Happy hump day.
You know what? We haven't had a perfect, non-technical show yet. We're working on it, but I tell you what,
Okay.
we'll get there. We'll get there, guys. So give us,
Okay.
yeah.
So welcome to this discussion tonight. I think it's going to be a very informative and a very interesting debate. I'm fascinated by it, although I'm kind of new to the platform and kind of the arguments for both. So I'm going to be learning alongside you guys too. So I'm looking forward to it. But before we get there, I just want to go through a couple quick announcements with some things that we have going on. Saturday at 6:30, we have Godless Engineer and Inspiring Philosophy. They're going to be coming on to debate the evidence for the existence of Jesus Christ. And both of these guys are extremely knowledgeable about their stances and arguments, and it's going to be a really good discussion. You do not want to miss that. It's 6:30 Eastern, right here on our show. Next Wednesday, we will be doing something special with King Crocoduck. We got kind of a cool little thing we're going to do with him. That's going to be on our Ad Hominem show at 9 o'clock. That's 9 Eastern as well. On the 24th of April, we have another discussion with Matt Dillahunty. What we do with Arn, but we'll be announcing that theist that he will be having the discussion with coming up in the next couple of weeks, and that's going to be on Is Religion a Positive Influence in Society Today? So you don't want to miss that. And the last one that I have is going to be Friday, Friday, April the 13th. So Friday the 13th, we are going to be having the first ever roast of Kent Hovind. So you do not want to miss that. It'll be a good time. We've got some special things lined up with some content creators that over the years have either done videos or had run-ins with Kent. So it's going to be a really good time. And that's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern on Friday the 13th. And with that, Steve, it's all yours.
Hey, thanks, guys. So anyways, tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about flat Earth and what's called Geodesy. It's going to take a little bit of explanation to kind of dive into that, and I hope that Jesse here can kind of give us a little guidance on that, because I myself have looked into it, and it's quite interesting, but I'm not too familiar with the topic. So what we're going to be talking about between them is going to be Jeranism. People might know him from his channel. He has a very popular YouTube channel. He has quite a following of flat earthers. And then Jesse Kozlowski. Did I get that right, Jesse? Did I get it right finally? Kozlowski?
Almost, but you
so close. Kozlowski.
There you go.
Kozlowski. Kozlowski. And you do surveying and actually a lot of flat earth debunking, correct?
Mostly surveying. No, I do have a channel, and I the flat Earth got me interested to see the curve, and so I post things on my channel using surveying to show people, what I'm seeing, and that's it. I'm not out to debunk it. It's more of basically what I'm seeing. But I will tell you, I think we are buffering on the
I've just
live.
caught that. So I'm gonna be trying to work around that. Sometimes YouTube does that with the output stream. I'm gonna kick it up a notch, and we can try go from there for a second.
Okay.
So.
And before we start, I want to tell Jaron, first of all, not maybe a lot of people don't know who are watching now. We did have this scheduled for a couple of weeks ago, and I had to bail out due to a family circumstance, and Jaron was very gracious about it, and I appreciate that, Jaron. Wanted to tell you that.
Yeah, you guys have had this discussion offline in a chat box for the most part, so this is kind of a continuation of where you guys left off, correct?
Yeah, and we were hoping to maybe start there. We were in a hangout, and Jaron, we were discussing perspective. And Jaron, are you still on the line? I haven't heard you yet.
I am here. Yeah.
Oh, good, good. Do you still have that that Google Earth location where you had that straight stretch of road with the telephone poles, and we were kind of discussing there? We could start there or anywhere, but I thought that might be a good place to start. We didn't really finish that, and it's as good a place as any to start.
Yeah, the one problem is I didn't save that one location, but you want me just to find another straight stretch of road with some telephone poles?
That would work.
Okay, if you want to do like a quick intro of who you are or whatever, then I'll find that during that time.
Yeah, take 2 minutes to introduce yourselves, and I should note, by the way, we are using a different OBS streamer. If there's a problem with the buffering, please let us know instantaneously where I can try to correct it in real time. We're also having alert boxes, so people that are subscribing to us, it'll come up in real time. And if you want to donate to the Non Sequitur Show, we also have the Streaming Labs Non Sequitur channel set up where you can go into the video description and donate that way. It comes up in real time, and we will acknowledge every one of you at some point. Trust me on that one. So let us know instantaneously if there's a problem with the feed. I think I've got it worked out, but we are fiddling with it. So Jesse, go ahead and introduce yourself first, and then we'll have Jeranism do the same thing.
Okay, yeah, my name's Jesse Kozlowski. I'm a surveyor. That's how I make my living. Been surveying pretty much since getting out of high school. And I'll date myself here. That was in 1978, and I've done a lot of different kinds of surveying. I've done some construction that didn't, some people really like doing construction layout, construction surveying. That I've done some of that. It wasn't the thing that piqued my interest as much as boundary surveying, and I really enjoyed large tract surveying here in New Jersey, in the southern part of the state. A lot of people may not know that New Jersey, before it was a state, was a proprietor. There were proprietors. There was an East Jersey and West Jersey, and so a lot of the old tracts are described going back to the 1600s. And surveying is a very interesting a field or a profession to get involved in. The other aspect of surveying that really piqued my interest was geodetic surveying. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it here. It's one of these things, when I was real young and just getting into the profession, the party chief that I was working with said we have to go find a USGS monument. And I said, "What's that?" I had no idea what he's talking about. And we were out there in the swamps of in the marsh near Atlantic City, looking around for something. I didn't even know what we were looking for, and we come upon this very large concrete structure sticking up out of the marsh, next to an old washing machine, and maybe there were some discarded tires there. It was a mess, And I walk up to this thing, and there's this disc, like a big 3-inch diameter brass disc, and I'm like, "What the heck is this thing?" And he said, "That's a geodetic monument." I said, "Well, what is it? What do you mean?" And he says, "Yeah, it's got latitude, longitude, and an elevation on it from sea level." I just was astounded. It blew me away. I'm like, "What are you talking about? You mean there's more of these?" And that was one of the things that captured my interest right away. And so from that point forward, I really became fascinated with that topic. And you're right. You guys were saying you hadn't even heard of the term geodesy. It's not something a lot of people know about, and it's just something that is kind of in the background. And the more you look into it, you find that just about everything we do is based upon what geodetic agencies, geodetic surveying agencies around the world have done, the work that they've done to map countries, to map out the borders of countries, the state boundaries, you name it. This is something called geodetic control, and these discs that we go use today are established and put there by geodetic surveyors, and these control basically all kinds of projects like highways and bridges and tunnels and so forth. So it's kind of like the backbone of the maps that we use.
So it's basically geometry of the Earth, right?
It is, well, okay. Geodesy is that is exactly it is the science of determining the size and shape of the Earth.
Okay.
And that's what geodesy is. And it, like I said, it serves as the backbone for all the mapping that we see.
All right. Awesome. All right. So Jeranism, you're with us still? You find what you're looking for?
Yep, I found it.
right.
So we'll be able to bring that up in a second.
Yeah, take a few minutes to introduce yourself, your channel, and kind of what your thing is all about.
Sure. I'm Jaron, the owner and creator of the channel Jeranism. Deeply hated by many, and deeply hated mostly by the Ball Earth dogmatists. I actually have quite a few subscribers who are, I think Steve, you said at the beginning there that I have quite a few followers that are flat earthers. I actually have quite a few followers that are ball earthers. Many of them email me constantly. And what they say is that they watch my channel because they appreciate me doing something that nobody else does, and that's asking questions that others are afraid to ask. So personally, I'm deeply bothered with the religions of all kinds. Every single religion is wrong, and that includes science. It is a belief system. Whether or not people who believe in science will ever admit that, for some reason they won't. However, just because that group of people has their own established facts does not mean that they're facts. In fact, science has always been wrong and will always be wrong. It will always be working towards the truth. The truth is not something physical. We can't go grab it. It is an intangible thing, and therefore it can never be reached. It can only be sought after, right? And so religions can be used in one of two ways, either service to ego or service to truth. And when you use the religion to say, my religion is right and yours is wrong, then you have created a service to yourself. So Christians that say that to me, I know that they're just operating from a place of ego, saying, I know the truth. I know that Jesus was born of a virgin. You don't. And then that's a problem. And if you use your religion as a service to truth by leaving kind of breadcrumbs out there, leave some signposts, allow people to find their way spiritually, if that's what they want, to find their way wherever. But when you've got people saying this is the truth, that there is no question about it, then I have a big problem with that. That is your belief. It is not. It is a religion, and science is a religion. Is there many great things that have come out of science, more than any religion? Absolutely. But that does not make it different than saying, you can lead people to the truth. You can, but just to be dogmatist about it, that's what I have a problem with. So that's basically it. And I do have a feeling that I know what's going on with the whole idea of geodesy. Like everything that there is, these are not little white lies that people have told, in my opinion, about these things. These are constructed and crafted, very intricate deceptions. So it's not as easy as, well, we measure the Earth is curved. Okay, well, show me how we measure the Earth is curved. Then when I see how we measure the Earth is curved, I take a look at it and say, is there a way that they could have fooled us with this measurement? And when you find a way that they could have fooled us, then it's worth asking the question. When I ask the question, I get told by people, you're not allowed to ask that question. You can't ask that. You can't ask. You're not allowed to make an objection to those things because they're well established. We've known them for thousands of years. How do we predict eclipses if the Earth is not a ball? Statements like that are ridiculous. That they knew eclipses 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. They could predict eclipses. It has nothing to do with the ball Earth. And it looks to me that they have crafted their models around, or even crafted their mathematics around observations. So they've seen the way something works, and then they try to make a math to match it. And people still think math is like something that's inherent in the universe. Math is invented. It is a human construction. It is a human language written in a way that is systematic, more systematic than a language, but it's more direct. One is one, no matter who you are. So that's basically my issue. Let me bring up what Jesse wanted to talk about, and then he can. Let me try and share my screen here.
Okay, let's kind of dive right into the topic. Yeah, here you go.
I just want to chime in where you were there in the last part of what you were talking about, Jaron. I think you described it pretty accurately that the model is built around the observations, and the observations are what we see and can measure. So I think, in the course of this discussion tonight, I'd like to show you some measurements and maybe, I think we should talk about them, but that statement isn't incorrect to say that the model is built from the measurements. That's, the measurements just reveal something about what it is that you're examining. Then you can try to describe what that is that you're examining. And in this case with Geodesy, we have lots and lots of measurements. Most of them begin with measuring latitude. And I do want to go into that a little bit. I mean, that's pretty much where it begins, the measurement of latitude. Yeah, are you going to share your screen here?
Oh, I thought I was.
You are. Oh, yeah, let me know ahead of time when you're screen sharing. I'll go right to the whole screen so everybody can see it quite visually and easily.
Yeah, I see it in Skype, but not in on the show.
Do you guys on the outside feed? Do you guys see the entire screen? Because it should be showing the entire screen right now, which is his screen.
It's still me and Jaron up there in outer space.
You're good on the feed, Steve. It's showing.
Okay, it should.
Sure. Not really. No, it's not.
All right, well, let's ask the outside feed. That's what I have them for. Outside feed, can you guys see the chat? I'm assuming I have the chat. Can you see the screen sharing?
Should be a road.
It should be a road.
It's in the upper right corner, really, really zoomed in.
Right.
There you go. Now it's out. Now it's centered. There you go.
I didn't do anything different, but okay.
Probably a delay.
Yeah, it could be delay.
Yeah, it's a delay, I think.
Yeah, we do.
Carry on.
Delay. Carry on.
So this is the road that Jaren and I were talking about a couple weeks ago. Just a private hangout. We were just discussing this, and the discussion was about perspective. And if I recall correctly, Jaren, you were saying we were just coming up with like a thought experiment of, say, like 10,000 feet of road, approximately 2 miles of road, and assuming that the Earth is flat and that the road is flat. Yeah. And so we were talking about putting up a level instrument and putting that instrument about 5 feet above the road, let's say. So if everyone is familiar with the surveyor's level, it establishes a horizontal reference that is perpendicular to the up-down direction where you are. And so it's really creating a parallel relationship as it would be on a flat Earth. And so we were talking about, if we hold the rod with the staff, the survey staff, approximately 100 feet away, and we read 5 feet, as I recall, Jaren, you were saying the further away you go, it's going to shrink down. And, I'm telling you that would not be the case on a flat Earth. You would continually read 5 feet, no matter how far away you go. And even if you hold it all the way at the end of that flat Earth road, way, way down there where you can't see it anymore. But if you could call the guy on a cell phone and say, put a target up next to that rod and put it up till I say stop, it would be on 5 feet. So do you disagree with that?
Yeah, completely. Because if you, and I'll just show an example real quick here. If you were to look down this road and you would to be aimed a little bit down, so now your head would be not tangent, your head's going to be slightly pointed to the ground here. If you hit this, zoom in button, which is all a telescope is, it's already zoomed. I'm going to hit the zoom button here, but we know a telescope is the end of that zoom. And if I start to zoom, watch this horizontal line here. So watch where the horizon matches your screen. And as I start to press this, the horizon's going to rise. Okay, that makes sense because we were looking down, and as we zoomed in, the horizon rised. So if we looked up and we now are looking too high, and we now use the zoom in, the horizon here is going to fall on your screen. You'll see the horizon drop. Okay. If you got it perfect.
So far not. It hasn't caught up. I'm watching on the program side, not on the Skype side.
It's going to be about
you want to watch on the
seconds.
Skype side because we're on a delay. So you want to focus in while he's showing you what he's showing you on the Skype end because they're on a delay on the time frame. So
all right. So I'll keep up that makes
okay.
sense. That makes sense. Okay, I'm with the delay now. Go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry
so then
about
if you watch this horizon line here, when we zoom in, it's going to drop a little bit. Okay, so then if you got it perfect, if you were to level this off, completely perfect, then the horizon line might be able to stay. But in order to do that, you would have to lay the telescope on the ground. because no matter what, the telescope will always be higher than the ground, no matter what. And therefore, you will always be looking higher than the horizon line through a telescope. And if it's zoomed in, which means you're going to be zoomed here, the telescope only exists in its circle, meaning it doesn't know that anything else outside of it exists. When it's zoomed in, the telescope only knows that that circle, a 2D picture plane, exists. And therefore, what we see when you're looking in the distance and you say, oh, this dropped so much distance, it didn't drop. It is because you've zoomed in and you're zooming in higher than that location. One way
can
to
I stop?
describe
Can I pause you right there just so I can pick up with?
Let me just finish one other thing. You were
Okay.
saying about if we put a telescope on top of this pole right here and we leveled it, it's your belief then that the telescope should stay in line with the top of these telephone poles, and it wouldn't. It would be looking off into the space out here. It would be above the horizon line, even though it's level here. And this is something that's been known for hundreds of years, and yet Geodesy refuses to admit it, even though it can be proven quite easily. If you just think about, if you put a telescope on top of a cloud at 10,000 feet, and you went and looked and you leveled it, and you went and looked through that telescope, would it be showing you the horizon line? Absolutely not. It'd be looking out into space.
Yeah, the only trouble, Jaron, when we've done this before, and when you start talking about putting telescopes on clouds and so forth, I mean, I've never done that. And I've never put a telescope on top of a telephone pole. So I'm willing to go with you to a certain point using these kinds of thought experiments and describing things. But, you just made a statement that it's been shown for hundreds of years that the line of sight would be going up and so forth. And, you'd have to show me that, because my experience using these instruments doesn't follow what you're saying. Now, looking at this photograph,
which
this photo, this what we're looking at right now. Yeah, just what we're looking at. Look at the fence over on the left side.
Okay.
Those posts are nominally, I'm going to guess, 4 feet high. Let's say.
Okay.
They're not all exactly 4 feet high, but let's just say they're around 4 feet high, each and every one of them. So they're all the same height above the ground. And so same thing with the telephone poles. They're nominally 25 feet high, 30 feet, I don't know, but they're all approximately the same height.
Correct.
Same thing for the trees over on the right side when you were zooming in.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm describing are parallel lines. They're parallel to the road.
Mm-hmm.
So the trouble that we're having, and you and I hope can get past it tonight in this conversation, because I've got some other things I'll show you. The trouble we're having is that we're looking at a picture, and the picture, well, obviously we're seeing perspective in this picture. Everything's converging to the roadway out there.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're really talking about are measurements and instruments that can do the measuring, the kinds of instruments that were used to construct this highway, or to line out that fence and make sure that fence was on the correct property line.
But that's a non sequitur. I mean, what you're saying.
No. It's let me. You got to make a distinction between these pictures and the descriptions that you make about these pictures. You got to make a distinction about that compared to an instrument and how it works and the measurements that it will make. Because if I set the level right there where it says
Jesse,
next.
When does the setting of your equipment at further than a mile ever be taken into account?
I don't measure a mile, Jaron.
Okay, that's exactly my point. So
I measure. The last time I measured miles in my line of work was in the 80s. It was before we started using GPS. We had to measure many miles, so that was in those days, and it was done to standards and specifications that you can look up. I think I've sent them to you in the past. You can read about them. Anyone can. There's no secret to it. It's pretty well known how these things work. But what I was going to say is, if you could set up that instrument right next to those reflectors, where that tar, you see that little tar ball. Let's say we put the instrument at Google Earth. Yeah, right there. We set the instrument up right there, and it's 5 feet above the road.
Okay.
and we go and walk out 100 feet away and hold the staff. And if this is a flat road, let's assume this is absolutely flat. I'm gonna read 5 feet on the rod.
Okay.
If I move another 100 feet, the number 5 is going to look smaller, but the crosshair is going to slice right across 5. Okay.
Okay.
If I had the ability to read it 1,000 feet away, and I don't think you can, but for the sake of this conversation, on a flat Earth, on a flat road, you would read 5. Why? Well, because we're saying that the road is flat. We're saying that the instrument is set up.
Okay, well, I would disagree with you there. I don't think that we would read 5, and the reason why is because of refraction. That you're looking through. We can get.
But
we have to go. We have to go real world. The real world is that as you look in the distance, you see more and more atmosphere, which means you're looking into a thicker and thicker and thicker.
Yeah. We can go there in a second. Right now, we're just trying to get across a concept of parallel lines.
Yeah, I think everybody understands that, though.
I don't think so. I don't think you do, because you're talking about things going downward and so forth. That's why I'm going to the extent we are.
What things am I talking about going downward?
You were talking about with the level set up on top of the telephone pole.
Okay.
And you also talked about a level being set up in 10,000 feet in the clouds.
Okay.
Let's bring it back to where we have the level set at those little reflectors, which is real world.
Okay.
And we have it set up 5 feet above the street.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the assumption here, that the Earth is flat. This is a flat road.
Mm-hmm.
The level is creating a parallel horizontal reference to the road.
Mm-hmm.
And at 50 feet away, we would read 5 feet.
Okay, I agree with that.
And then, okay, good. Now, without entering atmospheric into it, without entering into refraction or anything else, just going with this concept of parallel lines on a flat world, on a flat Earth, the level would be creating a parallel horizontal reference that is parallel to the road, 5 feet above it, and wherever you hold the rod, it would be 5 feet.
Yeah.
And now, if I can, I think, this is where this whole perspective issue comes into play. And can I show you a couple things now?
Sure.
Okay. Let me let me go do my screen share. Plus share. I'm assuming you guys see my screen now. Do y'all see it?
Not yet.
I do not.
Oh. There you go.
All right. I made a folder called Perspective, and I just put a few things in here to discuss. And this was kind of, I think, where you and I started this conversation a couple weeks ago, where I'll ask you, you're saying this is due to perspective, right? Not the drop of the curve.
I'm saying it's due to a combination of refraction and perspective, yes.
Well, there's absolutely refraction is involved in this photograph, no doubt.
And will always be involved when looking into the distance.
Yeah, and refraction is it's known characteristic. We know the characteristics of refraction. We can predict refraction based on temperature.
No, you can't measure the column of air for 30 miles in front of you.
No, Jaron. First of all, let's all understand something.
You just said that we know the characteristics of refraction, and we know the characteristics of refraction if you're talking about what it tends to do or what it generally does, but it cannot
Correct.
be. Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. In other words, we could calculate some amount of refraction here. Okay, would it be to the nearest inch? No. Would it be to the nearest 10 feet? Yeah. Okay, so you got to kind of
but there's an inherent refraction in the fact that refraction is I hate to say bending of light because light doesn't bend. It is the redirection of light based on it being having to go from a lighter medium to a heavier medium. When you're looking in the distance, what's right in front of your face has the least amount of atmosphere. what's the furthest distance from you has the most amount of atmosphere. Therefore, anything that you're looking at in the distance will be down lower than it is in reality, period.
Well, I wouldn't say period. I would say can tend to. It depends on the time of day and so forth. You can watch refraction. If I were to set up a film, if I video recorded this all day long, you would see this moving. It would be moving. But we're not. I'm not here to talk about refraction right now. We can get to refraction. I really want to stick with the concept right now of establishing the horizontal reference. This is the part that gets left off most flat Earth discussions about the whole 8 inches per mile squared. There are so many memes and videos showing features, land features, mountains, islands, you name it, all these features that are far away, and then proclaiming there's all this curvature that's missing and that we should not see that thing. And I keep trying to help people realize that if you're going to use 8 inches times the mile squared, you must establish this horizontal reference, because that geometry, that formula, is related to this. And that is what the curvature is measured down from. Now, so I showed this picture only because this is where we began that perspective conversation.
Right.
What I'm showing you here is
Jesse. Real quick, we got to get Jeranism a little bit more. I think, no offense, I think you're kind of dominating this a little bit.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Not your fault. We were all fascinated by what you had to say, but I want to make sure that Jeranism does get some time to respond and make a presentation of sorts. So, Jeranism, you did have some things you wanted to present, did you not?
No, I mean, I wanted to discuss what he's talking about here. I mean, the fact is that they're calling this drop from, how high is this picture taken from? 250 feet about Apple Pie Hill, right?
256.
Okay, so from 250 feet high, it would be the assumption then of Jesse, that this crosshairs should hit the building at 250 feet high. And what I'm saying is that would never happen, because both the items in the distance are getting smaller, and because the telescope doesn't know that. The telescope has never been told that things get smaller in the distance. It only knows.
I always tell my telescope.
Well, yeah.
I always tell it. I whisper.
So if you look at the Bedford level experiment, this is the whole basis of the entire Bedford level experiment, and the reason that the whole controversy existed, because they called this curvature the fact that things in the distance fell. And Samuel Rowbotham, as much as everybody hates him, came along and said, well, we could do the experiment by, instead of leveling the telescope, point the telescope so that the crosshairs pass the first two posts, and then see what the posts in the distance do. Well, when they did that, the posts stayed true to the crosshairs of the level, which meant the Earth was flat and getting in the distance angled down, and the telescope proved that, because if the Earth was curved, then just because you have two posts at 10 feet high and you've got a bunch of them 10 feet high all the way down the river, if you point the telescope at the top of the first two and every other post stays exactly in the crosshairs, the Earth is clearly flat. It is a level plane. It's not a geodesic ball. And so that was proven there. And then, of course, Alfred Russel Wallace. And there's reasons why you don't hear Alfred Russel Wallace's name when you're talking about evolution. This is the reason Darwin got put up on a pedestal, is because Alfred Russel Wallace is actually more responsible for Darwinism than Darwin. The reason they couldn't mention him is because of this entire Bedford level. He embarrassed himself to every science person in the world by getting involved in this wager, which essentially proved that the Earth was a level plane. Now, of course, if you go read, I'm not saying if you go read in Wikipedia or you go read these articles on the internet, I'm not saying they're going to tell you that, because that wouldn't be a very good deception. They're going to tell you that John Hampton got all upset, or not John Hampton, John, what was his name? I can't remember his name. The Hampton guy got all upset and then threatened Alfred Russel Wallace's wife and ended up having to go to jail and pay retribution. That's all true. Those things did happen. The reason he threatened his wife and everything was because the fact that they took the observations and said, no, we're not accepting this observation with the telescope angled because it's no longer level at the position that we started it from. This is the whole controversy. And I was right there in it saying, wait a second, we should have to level the telescope. Why don't we level the telescope? And when you do, you see that the posts drop. Therefore, that's why that team said the Earth was curved. The other team was saying, well, no, because the telescope only sees in that circle of view all the way down the corridor And we never taught a telescope that things get smaller in reality, not in reality meaning things don't actually physically change size, but from the perception of an onlooker, or from that person's perspective, things are going to reduce in size in the distance. It's the way that life works because of refraction, because you're looking into a deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper medium, and those things drop naturally. Now, again, if you angled, is this the George Habituk? Yeah. And here's the problem with his experiment. I was watching his setup the other day, and he's doing it by putting posts. So he's laying out his sticks, and then he's measuring from the stick to from the target to the ground, and he's making sure that his beam passes hits the same part of the target all the way across. Well, what he's doing that for is to protect from exactly what I'm saying. Because if you did it the other way,
he's going to do it both ways. You could do it both ways. He's first of all just getting the targets set, and you're right. He's going to set the targets at the same crosshair visual. Okay. But then the other thing he can do is lower the targets all down to be the same height above the water. So
right.
We're going to do both. And he's invited you up. I hope you go up there. I'm going up there the end of this month. You should come up. And we're also going to do the snowmobile with a P900, filming the snowmobile going off into the distance, because he's got like a 20-mile stretch. So we're going to watch the snowmobile go over the horizon, and we're going to try to pull it back with the P900. And then we're going to send a drone up, and I think we'll see the snowmobile. But I only brought this picture up because you were discussing the Bedford level. I wanted to make sure you knew about this, so you know about it. Others should know. This test is going to happen soon, and it's a great test. It's on a frozen lake. He's going to drill holes into the ice, let the water come up, and make his measurements from there. But
just make sure people understand completely what a real scientific test would be, and what it would be is an unbiased test. It would not be from somebody who's spent their entire years of their life being a physicist, and somebody who believes only in the standard model and is out to prove wrong the flat Earth. Because if you do that, you're going to prove it wrong. I hate to tell you.
In my case, Jaron, look,
I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about George.
Well,
okay.
No, but I'm glad you raised that issue, because look, this picture here. Why did I even go up here? It was because I watched a video called "Flat Earth Proof Number 3: Land Ho." And it goes through and shows all these places in the world where there's missing curvature and you shouldn't see that thing way out there. And then it came upon Apple Pie Hill, which, is like 30 minutes from me. I've climbed up this tower like all my life as a kid. We hung out back here. And I never really thought to go look to see Philadelphia from there. But by the way, if you turn around, you can see Atlantic City in the other direction. So, that's what got me into this 2 years ago was, hey, what's it look like? This is the picture I took. You have your explanation. I have mine. We'll just have to let people decide for themselves. I'm going to move to the
And what was the distance there?
This one here, this is 32 miles away.
And then what's the distance that you were looking at across
here?
What's that?
Yeah. So, this is what I wanted to talk about was the difference in view of looking at that same building, but closer. I'm in Camden now. This is the Delaware River, and I'm doing a triangulation to locate and position that Comcast building from this photo. So that's what this is.
I meant when you guys were over at Pontchartrain. What distances were you looking there?
Is that 26 miles? If Soundly's in the chat, maybe someone say for sure. I don't know offhand. I think it's 24, 26, something like that. This is a view of the Comcast building through the telescope, which this is the part I really want to help you see something here, Jaron. When you were talking about the Bedford level and the telescope doesn't know and all that, I never knew my telescope didn't know something, but it tells me something. And that is the measurement of angles. When you look at these pictures, understand, surveyors don't normally take pictures through their telescope. It's like, why would I do that? We are out there working, and we're just making measurements, horizontal angles, vertical angles, distances. And the only reason I took these pictures is to show this to people so we could talk about it. But go ahead.
Well, I've looked through a telescope quite a few times now. Could you, by moving your eye up or down, make that building appear above or below that crosshair?
If you did that, this is something every instrument operator needs to learn. If you wiggle your eye across the eyepiece and you see movement between the crosshair and the object you're looking at, you have what's called parallax. And you have to focus that out. So on the eyepiece, you focus it to thicken up the crosshair so that the crosshair and the object you're looking at are coincident. And when you wiggle your eye across there, you do not see it going up and down. Otherwise, you would be making inaccurate measurements. Mm-hmm. So that gets removed. You have to remove that. And remember, we don't measure an angle once. We measure it 4, 5, 6, 8 times to get repeatability. So you can compute the statistics on the result so you know what the precision is. This is, I'm just going to show you this. We don't have to belabor it. It's what I find to be the case from Apple Pie Hill, the fire tower, to the Comcast building, that the horizontal plane is tangent and perpendicular to the vertical plumb line at the observer. This is your visual line of sight to whatever distant object happens to be out there.
Okay, so why is the person looking angled down?
Could you possibly blow that up a little bit for the people looking at it? Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
This right here?
Yes.
Oh, see this right here? If I could grab that and move it up here or down here, I'm just saying that's your visual line of sight.
But it's not. We don't
look at whatever you're looking at. Doesn't matter.
No, we look tangent with the surface of the Earth.
Our eyeball?
Yes, our eyeball is tangent.
Well, let's say. Well, in that case, let's say you're looking at Mount Everest from someplace in India. If your eyes gaze at the very top, or if your eyes gaze down towards the middle of the mountain, or down to as low as you can go, aren't those all different angles of elevation with your eyeball?
I guess, but your line of sight is really that line up there where it says horizontal plane. That's your line of sight.
No, your line of sight is wherever you're looking.
Yeah, and you look when you stand up on the Earth and you look out. Your eyeball, your line of sight is tangent with the Earth. That red line is not tangent with the Earth.
Right. Your line of sight might be tangent, but doesn't have to be. You can look up or down.
Sure. Okay.
You can look anywhere you want here. If this is a mountain.
Okay, I thought you were talking about leveling a telescope and doing surveying work.
Well, when you level the telescope, right here, when you take that level bubble, which is a curved piece of glass with a bubble of air in there, and when you get that just right, you've established a horizontal reference that is perpendicular to the pull of gravity, okay? And so that is what that crosshair is aligned to in this picture. To thicken up the crosshair, that the crosshair represents the object you're looking at, that tangent line. Now, if I didn't have that crosshair in the picture, you could look at the top of the building, you could look at one of the lower buildings, you could look at the woods. Some people think that's water. It's not. It's a forest. You could look above the buildings. Wherever you're looking is your line of sight.
Okay.
So your line of sight varies with wherever you're focusing your eyeball on. And you can't possibly look out. Like if I could make this crosshair disappear, you have no way of guessing, I wonder where the horizontal tangent is. You would never know. So it takes an instrument to do that. And if you don't want to use an instrument like that, I know I have some pictures of hand levels. They're about $30. They're used in grading. I'll get to that in a minute. I just wanted to make sure others are aware of this guy who, I don't know this guy, Dark Star, but he took this picture. He did his own analysis of this, and he did that way before I even made any conclusion about it. But this is the more important thing I want to show people is.
Well, just so people know real quick that before they get confused and think, well, why does the 8 inches per mile squared match? And because that is based off of our eyes. It's not. That's what. Well, I can't speak on behalf of flat earthers. That's my belief. My belief is it is a reverse engineered. The idea of the size of the Earth came about because of the ability for us to see. How far we can see is where they based this whole idea of curvature. Because what we clearly see is those buildings are not angled. They're not leaning. They're simply dropping. And you're calling that an angle. You're saying if I take where this building was or should be, and then I measure where it is, that difference there is a angle difference. So tell people about how that's what you do. That's exactly how you measure. If you were going to measure how much the Earth curved from here, you would be looking at the fact of how much the building is actually above, or how much the crosshairs is above the 250 mark of those buildings, correct?
I would not.
What do you mean? How do you do it?
Yeah, like remember, Jaron, surveyors today, and you kind of I won't say mocked, maybe that's too strong a term, but you made your video called "Holy Geodesy: A Sermon by Jesse Kozlowski," and in that, and I do want to go into that with you if we have the time to. I hope to. You know, you make a representation of the way these things get measured, and it actually doesn't work that way. So you say that the zenith. But let me just finish this. This right here is nothing more than a picture taken through a level telescope on top of a fire tower at a distant city. This is not survey work. It's not the way any surveyor would go and measure this. No way. He would do this. He would get up close and triangulate. In other words, I established 3 different stations to intersect angles to position and compute the coordinates of the building by triangulation. This right here is survey work. Mm-hmm. So and that's how that was done.
And Jaron, real quick, Jeranism, what were you getting ready to ask him? I want to make sure we don't lose you out of that. You were getting ready to ask him a question about that?
Well, I was going to say when he showed in his video these 2 markers that were 7,000 feet apart, the fact that one of them was showing to be lower than the crosshairs, he said, is proof that the sum of the zenith angles is always greater than 180, which is the case and will always be that way, because if everything was level, meaning everything was equal, then it would be 180. But the fact that things in the distance get smaller causes things in the distance to drop, which means your crosshairs will always hit higher. They will always hit higher.
I have to disagree with you because I have the measurements to show otherwise, Jaron.
Across
and
water?
In the video that you're referring to, where I'm on the Cooper River Lake, I'm doing 2 things. One, taking pictures through the telescope with the telescope set horizontal. Okay. And that is just for looking at it. That would not be considered a survey measurement.
Okay, I'm not saying anything is considered. No, I said when you did your video.
Not you, but I'm saying for those listening.
Okay, and then you went to the other side.
Then you measure the zenith angles.
But, hey, one at a time, guys. One at a time.
I want to make sure that
each other.
Sorry.
Okay, but let me just say, you measured from one side to the other and showed that it was below the crosshairs, and then you went to the other side and showed again that the other side was below the crosshairs. So in your world, both things are lower than the other, correct?
They are this, Jaron. It's back to this chart right here. It's like this. Pretend this is that lake.
Yeah, I know what the model of the Earth.
But there's people listening too. I want to make sure they get it. I did 2 things. I took a picture, and my target was below the crosshair. Okay. And I did the same thing. You're right. I came over here, and this horizontal line extends out.
Okay, but that's not the way that the Earth works. We are all at the top of the ball, so you can't take a measurement from both those places. You have to be at the top each time.
Wherever you are, you're at your own top. That's the top you are at.
Okay,
but I just want to make sure that the distinction is being made. There's pictures and then there's measurements. So the pictures are just for educational purposes, that you could see that the target was below on both, looking in both directions. But the surveying part and the way things work survey-wise with measurement is that I measured zenith angles to both. And the sum of those angles is greater than 180 degrees. And now you're saying that's
I'm
okay,
saying,
that's how it would work on flat Earth. And I'm saying flat Earth,
well, I'm
these would
debating
be
even that you can tell
would be
people,
parallel.
show people how you measure what you're calling a zenith angle. You said you figure out the angle that is greater than 180. So show people exactly how you determine that the angle is greater than 180.
Is the sketch okay to do it on?
Sure.
Okay. So we take the theodolite, we set it up here. You've seen the level vial. I don't think I made any snapshots of that, but anybody could look it up. You level the instrument so that it has created this reference.
Okay.
The zenith angle is measured, as the name implies, from the zenith at 0.
Correct.
To here would be 90.
Okay.
To here would be more than 90. And so when you measure these zenith angles and you repeat them, I took like 4, maybe 6 sets of zenith angles. Then I moved over here, put the target over on the left side, did the same thing, level the instrument, measured zenith angles. The sum of those ought to be 180 degrees on flat Earth, but they are always greater than 180 degrees. And I did that several times that day, but I think I did like 4.
And I've said many times that it will always be greater than 180, right? Because of perspective. That's what I said. And you can people can make all the jokes they want and say flirspective and think that's really cute, but
well, I'm not gonna laugh at you about it. I'm trying to show it to you. I really am, and I'm doing my best to show it to you. And that's why we're in this particular folder. I have.
But hold on. Just real quick, Jesse. Make sure you let Jeranism complete his thought so he gets that entire sentence out.
I apologize, Jaron. I'm sorry to
step
cut
on
you
each
off.
other.
Yep, go right ahead.
No problem. Okay, but really, when you're saying that you're measuring the zenith angle as greater than 180, so show people which angle it is that is greater than 90, then.
Well, again, the angle from here to the horizon is 90. And then, if my target, let's say my target is set right here on the top of that tripod. In fact, this visual line of sight would represent the line to the target, and it would be greater than 90.
Okay, and then because things shrink in the distance, because they appear to get smaller as things go in the distance, then that is going to cause things to be more or less than 90 degrees when measured.
Says you.
I'm asking,
Oh, no. Yeah, but I don't agree with that because we went through that whole exercise on the road minutes ago showing that on a flat Earth, a level set 5 feet above the road creates a parallel relationship to the road.
If there's no such thing,
and that's why I wanted to show you.
Well, you said if there was no such thing as refraction in that case.
No, I didn't say there was no such thing as refraction.
Yeah, you made us remove it in order to do your example. You said that we had to pretend there was no refraction.
No. Well, I said only for discussing this particular concept of creating the parallel lines.
Yeah, and you just went back to that concept and then employed and said refraction is there. So it's not there. Because you said it's not there. If it is there, then the item in the distance appears lower.
All right. So is it refraction or perspective that makes the items shrink?
Both things exist. So what kind of question is that?
Well, I'm asking you that is
both exist.
Both exist. I agree. You did hear me say that there's absolutely refraction involved here.
Right. So then you just admitted then with refraction, do things in the distance go down or up?
It really depends on the conditions because...
So is there conditions more often or not that the items in the distance would be lower or higher than their real position?
I would say this, to answer your question, if we could video this, if this was a time-elapsed video, you would see this going up and down over the course of the day and into the evening.
Right. So if
you know who's made a lot of videos of that is Soundly. He's got days and days of video showing things bobbling up and down.
Okay, but where would things not bob as much? Would they not bob as much at the top of the building or at the bottom?
It really depends on those temperatures because the best time of day would be in the afternoon. You would have the most settling out of the atmosphere.
Right.
As the evening starts to approach.
Okay, so let's hypothetically say.
Now you're kind of stepping on me a little bit.
Go ahead.
Let me finish that. as the evening comes, the temperature, you'll have temperature inversion. You can have all kinds of atmospheric effects. However, keep in mind, this is 32 miles away. And also keep in mind, this is just a picture. I keep telling you that. This is not any way anybody would do any type of measuring to assure the location of this building.
You keep using straw man arguments. I'm not saying that. So stop going to things that you think I'm saying that I never said. I've never made that claim. So don't go there.
Which claim?
Oh, boy. You keep saying that nobody's doing any measurements like this. This is just a picture.
I want to make sure that you understand, because we're talking about two different things, and I do want to show you the measurements.
Okay, so what I'm saying is then, if you're talking about 32 miles of distance and you're looking, where's the least amount of atmosphere, in front of your face or compacted on the length to the buildings?
The most, of course, you've got 32 miles of atmosphere there.
Okay, so when we know that light bends due to going into a heavier medium, is the light going to bend down or up? For the most part, in general, for 32 miles away from you.
Well, when refraction is worst, you can see things coming up. You can see lower.
I'm not talking about a rare thing happening. I'm not talking about a fata morgana. I'm talking about in general, when you're looking at 32 miles of distance, and there's going to be a compaction of atmosphere between you and the distance, and light bends down when it's going into a heavier medium. So in the distance over 32 miles, would things generally drop or rise?
Drop.
If you can't, okay, thank you.
But Jaron, are you going to say, this is my question to you. You used the word admit. I've already said there's definitely refraction involved here. And what's the magnitude of it? Use the worst case for refraction. Are you saying there's 800 feet of refraction?
Yeah, when you combine that with the amount that those buildings have shrunk in the distance. Yeah.
Okay. So you would, just so I understand you, this is due to refraction and perspective, 800 feet. It's about 800 feet or so. I forget.
Well, the building is 1,000 feet high, and you're probably hitting it at
702 feet drop of curve. That's it's about 700 some feet. And you're saying that's what this is. We are seeing 702 feet of effect of the combination of refraction and perspective.
Yeah, and over 32 miles, that is 0.002% or something. And yes, it is a combination of both those, that you're seeing things in the distance which are going to look lower to you because you're looking through a bunch of atmosphere and the light is being bent downwards. Okay. Therefore, you are seeing them appear to be lower than they really are, and that's the whole case. So then, yeah,
okay.
And then
what I'm going to show you next, or not next, but I can show you, I do have for you, similar types of measuring in only several hundreds of feet, maybe 400 feet or so. Are we gonna make the same claim to that?
No, I need to see.
Okay. Okay. So and the reason I did that was because of this conversation we're having now, that I wanted to do something that could eliminate.
Okay, and let me think of
or
something.
Minimize.
Here's the one way I wanted to do something. If we put a laser and we attached it to the top of this telescope, okay, yeah. And it was completely leveled and completely parallel with this telescope, and it looks off in the distance. What we would see right now is we'd see the laser light coming straight down from the top of the screen right to the middle, correct?
If you have a telescope and a laser mounted on it and they are parallel, then the laser is going to hit whatever you're looking at the same distance above the crosshair.
Okay, so I'm saying if we're looking through this screen like we're looking at right now, so on the right-hand side, I'm talking about your crosshairs.
Here. Yeah.
Right. What we would see in this screen is we would see a green laser light coming from straight above our heads, straight down to the crosshairs, is what you're saying.
No. If you have if you have a laser, by the way, George did that. I don't know if you saw that. He has a laser mounted on top of his total station instrument, and they're creating a parallel relationship. The laser beam is going out, and it is the same distance above his crosshair. So the laser would not go down. It would be, it would be above. it would not cross.
I'm saying in this picture here, what we would see is the laser would start where? At 0 degrees, right? Straight up above your head, straight up. Put your mouse up, all the way to the top of the screen, all the way to the top, right there. That's where the laser would start. And the laser would come down, and you're saying it would end at the crosshairs. That's what we would see through this view. I'm talking about on top. The laser
okay.
is,
So if you could see the laser light, I got
you would see the laser light.
But it depends. At night you would. Otherwise, you'd be seeing it hitting that target. You'd see a dot on the target if you had a target out there.
So if that's true, then think about what you just said. If we're seeing a dot above the crosshairs, well, your laser light is only 2 inches above the telescope, but you're drawing a little point there that is the equivalent of hundreds of feet above that crosshairs. So think about what you're saying.
Well, Jaron, again, this is 32 miles away. I don't think I'd see it.
Okay,
but
so
maybe,
let's bring it back. Let's talk about we're doing a mile. Okay, we're looking at a mile.
Right. But before that, I wanted to leave this Walter Bislin thing, because this impacts what you're talking about. You're talking about things shrinking and so forth. You are aware of this website, right?
That I went there. It's the flat Earth model. After, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they show the flat Earth. You could see the buildings are smaller. I mean, it obeys everything you're talking about.
It does not. It brings items up over the curve due to refraction. Which
no, on the flat Earth side, if you hit the flat Earth tab, not the globe model, use the flat model.
Okay.
I mean, you can look at this, and that's the view I'm showing you here. This is the flat one, where the crosshair would be parallel at about 250 feet. You know, he even puts a level staff here for you.
Yeah, because it's a model. What are you talking about?
But it's the flat Earth model.
Okay.
So in other words, it's
a flat Earth model with no refraction and no nothing at all that happens in real life. You're right. It's a great drawing. Great.
Yeah, but you can apply refraction to this.
What kind of refraction? They apply the reverse refraction. They make things rise up in the distance. Because that's what you need to do.
That's what refraction does. It pulls things up. Refraction helps the flat Earth.
It pulls things up, huh?
Yeah.
This is where you guys are all confused. This is why you guys are so confused. You think that so just last time we talked, you heard Steve McRae say, oh, well, you can't see boats that are beyond the curve because their photons wouldn't hit your eye. Yet you do believe that things that are behind the curve can be lifted up by refraction, and then the photons are shown to you. So it doesn't work when Flat Earth wants to employ the same thing. But you guys you don't understand that what you have is you've been given a blueprint of how the deception works, and you guys go around repeating the blueprint, saying...
No. Listen, Jaron, I disagree with you there. I'm out here doing this work. I'm measuring. I'm doing this.
Great, but
when are you going to come up and see what George is doing?
Because I've seen what George does. George is constructing his experiments to prove that the Earth is sphered. Okay,
no, he is not.
I've watched his videos. So
look,
by saying that you're gonna put the markers at the point of the crosshairs, you are making sure that you don't show what I just told you about.
He's going to do both.
He says he is. We'll see. Well, I don't believe he will, because it will prove him wrong.
Well, but he's also invited you up there, and
I've seen him.
And he's also said to you, there's going to be a P900, and we're going to do the snowmobile going out. He's got a 22-mile stretch of flat ice, and we're going to do that when the snowmobile we're going to put a large pennant on it. This is our plan. Okay. I hope to get there during the weekend of March the 30th.
And so what will you say?
And we're going to do the thing that you've asked for. Do the P900. Watch the snowmobile go over the horizon, focus in, zoom in on it, and bring it back. Let's do that. Let's do it.
Well, okay. I'll tell you two things. Number one, it probably will not happen on the ice because you're going to see the snowmobile get smaller and smaller and smaller until it starts to get broken up. When you're talking about the water is because you've got a layer of atmosphere that is convoluting things can I share my screen real quick? I'll show you one thing.
Yeah.
If I can find it here.
I'll give mine back. Let's see. Where do I do that? Do I have to give mine back to give?
No, he can screen share right off the little plus sign there.
Okay, cool.
1 second. I need to find this, or did I put it? So what I'm going to be showing is actually Soundly's work, and I give him all credit. And just so everybody knows, there is one difference about, or I don't know if it's a difference, but it's something I tell everybody. I would never tell anybody to believe me, to trust me, or to not watch somebody else's videos. Please go watch all of Wolfie's videos. Please go watch all of Soundly's videos, all of Red's Rhetorics, all those guys. You
What
need
about
to
me?
watch them all. And Jesse.
Yeah, you forgot the most important one, Jesse. He's here.
Sorry.
No, but
No,
I agree. Watch the other ones you mentioned as well. Great videos.
Yeah. Watch them all, because it all needs to be put into your plate before you make any decisions. But there's a lot of those people out there that are afraid of people seeing my videos. I've got 2 strikes now, so I can't even upload anything because people are flagging my videos because they're so afraid of anybody looking at anything outside of the mainstream. And that's pretty telling in the fact that if what I'm saying is such bullshit, then believe me, people will go and see it's bullshit and block me and stop watching.
The only thing I have issue with is that you talk about these things, and I want you to come out and agree to perform and do a test and verify and do what you need to do to verify what it is you're claiming about that test.
And I'm trying to
design the test in a way that you agree with.
Okay. So far, nobody has done a good job of that. Every test is designed in parameters that will end up showing the Earth to be curved. I'm not saying that means that they're doing a test that I don't agree with or that I'm against that test. Do all the tests that you want, but I'm trying to find something for myself that is definitive. And the tests that I'm seeing, I tried my test twice at the canal that I thought would be a definitive test. The problem is the laser that we had one $300 laser, one $500 laser. Both times I could not keep the beam at less than 6 inches, which is what I need to get a definitive result. But again, I'm doing the test by cutting these holes at 15 feet above the water level at all those posts and then shooting a laser through them to show that would be impossible on a curved Earth. Now, the problem is by the second or third panel, the beam's too big and it's
right. So it's a test that kind of
can't be done.
When you explained that test to me way before you did it, I told you, I doubt you're going to get the beam through these little holes. I doubt you're going to be able to get your posts lined up. And because I have construction experience and I know what it takes to line things up miles and miles apart. The test that George is doing, you've got everything you'd want: a frozen flat lake. You've got water reference that you can drill holes and measure to, and you can do what George has said to you is that he'll get any equipment you want. You can make any measurements you want. He's offering his laboratory to you, and I would love to help you. And I'll be there, man. Come out end of March. Let's do the snowmobile test. Let's do the targeting. You do realize he has cut the targets to the right size so that they all appear the same size. He did that, to account for perspective. That's
Correct.
That's a really unique approach.
Yeah, and then once he had all of his results from his last test, then he took them in and applied different numbers to them so that they would show up and show that the Earth is sphered. That's what he did. That the observations did not show that. The observations.
I don't know about his first test, but I do see what he's doing now, and it interests me greatly to go there, just the way I was very interested to go down and meet up with Soundly on Lake Pontchartrain and Little Tinsus Bayou.
So you've seen that the video that keeps being shown by Soundly of the Pontchartrain going off and curving, correct? I mean, that's something you've watched.
Well, yeah. I mean, I triangulated the building, and then I went onto the North Shore, and it's clearly, being obscured. Are you talking about his elevator videos where he has his drone going up? I mean, he's making some drone videos nowadays.
Yeah, I've seen. That's actually what I was going to. Oh, am I not sharing yet? Jeez. Hold on a second. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Are you still screen sharing? If not, I'll go back to the other screen.
No, I thought I was.
So you can screen share. Okay.
Okay, so now you should see. Do you see the elevator videos?
I see a skyline of some sort.
Okay.
That's
so this is
Louisiana.
Louisiana. Okay.
Right, and you see Soundly showing this, and I just closed off the edges because of the screen. I zoomed in, so that you couldn't see. Oh no, this is the one I didn't. This is his. See how his shows these black edges? I tried to get rid of those in my video so that they didn't come into play. But what you can see here is that what's happening is that this is not the water line causing things to disappear, because you can watch. Let me see here. Okay, I'll show you where to watch with my mouse here in a second. Watch this area here and tell me if it's the water line that is obscuring things or if it's the, there you go. So right here, things are obscured because you're looking through a layer of atmosphere, which is the case that we've been making for 3 years. That things do not disappear because they're falling behind any curve. Watch the tops of these buildings. Ready? Just watch the top. So if we watch the tops of those buildings, the tops don't move. Tops are staying right there. They don't adjust at all. And that's because what's happening here is this is our line of sight being affected by the layer of convergence. And it's nothing is falling behind any hill of water. It's ridiculous to think that, I mean, this bridge is right here. And if you go forward where the bridge is covered, to think that, oh, I live on a ball and the water.
Where is the bridge right now?
It's completely blocked by the atmosphere.
Oh, the atmosphere. Okay.
No, yeah, it's the atmosphere. I mean, it can go without saying. Go to any place. Go to the salt dunes. Go to the salt mines or the
salt bed. I mean,
salt flats.
Bonneville salt flats.
Yeah, and look over the distance, and you'll see all the miraging that happens right above the salt flats, right above the level. And this is the same thing. Only this place, you see that you're just having reflections of what's behind this. Like, what is this dark band here? What do you think that band is? What do you think it is, Jesse? Well, why is there a dark band there?
I don't know. For all I know, that wait, go back up. Go back the other way.
How far?
I mean, like way up.
Sorry.
More going up.
It'll come back. It does it back and forth. Tell me when.
And now stop.
Okay.
Okay. Now you see a light band between the dark band. Could that be a shadow of a cloud or something? I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
And I don't.
Could be just a difference in something about the water. That's all.
Okay, so when you're looking off into the distance, though, you can tell that this is like expanded, right? Meaning that when we get down here, we're compacting all of that water. We are. You can see it laid out when you're above a plane of ground, and then you're lowering. You're just seeing all that same plane, but having to compact into a smaller area. Correct?
I don't know. I mean, this is how you see it. I don't see what you're seeing.
Okay, so watch the top of this bridge here. Okay, we'll watch that bridge. Oops, I wanted to go the other way, but it'll come back.
Stop there for a second.
Okay, do you see how this is already starting to flush out?
Yeah, down low to the water. Down low to the water, and Soundly's the first guy to tell you.
Yeah.
Of the effect. He has videos on this topic of the atmospheric conditions. Listen, he has done a lot of studying about. He can tell you what.
Do you think that if Soundly found something that proved the Earth was flat, he would come out and say it at this point?
So would I, Jaron.
Wow.
I want to tell you right now, Jaron.
I think he would too. By the way,
Jaron, I want to tell you right now, Soundly would, and so would I. If you could show me.
What I'm saying is you guys won't even ask, or I'm sorry, mostly talking about Soundly, but won't even say that these are interesting questions. He dismisses it all as nonsense. So when somebody's done that and made fun of other people and made up words like flirspective and everyone comes and cheers him on, if you think that he would just all of a sudden say, you know what, I was looking at this though, and there's a few things I have questions on.
He does. He talks about atmospheric conditions. He's making a great study of it, and he's got a lot of data. We have data that we haven't even looked at yet at Little Tensas Bayou. In 2 days, I want to tell you something, man. We worked our asses off from sunrise to like freaking midnight, freezing cold, wet, and we haven't even investigated and looked at all of our data. There's a treasure trove of data there.
I'm not taking anything like that away from you guys. I think that you've done more than I've done by far. So I'm not saying anything about what the work that you guys have done. What I'm afraid of is that when somebody's gone out and made a point to say how right they are and how wrong everybody else is, and somebody could turn and say, Jaron, you're doing the same thing. There's a big difference, though, when somebody's trying to point out a deception to everyone, and a big difference between somebody trying to prove the mainstream medium, the mainstream belief. It's not impressive to me that those things have already been, quote unquote, proven. So you don't need to go out protecting the mainstream belief. What people need to be doing is trying to prove their model wrong. Nobody is trying to prove the globe wrong.
Jaron, that's how I jumped into this. I got into this because of that. I wanted to see it
hold
for
on,
myself.
Watch this right here. Then watch right here and watch this bridge. Watch the bridge and watch as I go up and watch it. See how it's breaking up and becoming nothing before? Okay, so when you see that, then you would have to recognize that, well, wait a second. The lower we get to the water, the more distorted things in the distance are.
Absolutely.
Therefore, okay, absolutely. And the higher up we get, the less distorted things are. So the natural realization there is, okay, when I'm down low by the water, because I'm looking through a greater distance of atmospheric effect, things in the distance tend to break up. This is something I had told Wolfie twice, and he still makes video obvious error of his thoughts. Showing a lighthouse off in the distance. And then he goes up to 100 feet high and shows the lighthouse again and says, well, clearly when we were down below, we couldn't see the
Okay.
Are we live, Steve, or not?
We should be back live. I just restarted the stream. If the outside chat can let me know if it's.
Are you guys recording this internally? Will it end up being? No, bummer.
I wasn't either. I didn't think about it.
Damn. Jaron will have to do it again.
Do 5 more.
Replay.
Jaron, seriously, man, why don't you come up there to Minnesota?
I'll have to look. I started.
Come on, it would be really cool. Come on, man.
Like I said, I was thinking about it. I really was, and then I watched some of his stuff, and I thought that he was setting up the experiment in a way.
Then call him on it, man. Call him on it. Be there and say, I saw what he's doing. No, go.
I've got a lot. I mean, I get emails.
But remember,
I got a lot of emails from this guy.
Yeah, but remember this. He's offered. He's explained to me, and I.
Now we should be back.
Yep.
So
okay.
Please let me know if it's live. Let me know if the outside chat can hear us.
Let me know when they say yay, and I'll keep going here.
Outside chat, can you hear us? Earth to outside chat.
We're back.
Okay.
Okay.
So
we're back.
People can see. All right. So basically,
I have to apologize for that. We are using a new encoder, so we're still working out the bugs. Please forgive us. Continue on to where you left off, if you can, please.
Yeah, I wanted to use these pictures that a friend has sent me. He owns these subtense bars, and like I was saying, just an old is using perspective. The fact is, this picture is taken about 10 feet away, and you see that he's lined up here, and it's 0. This is the Theodolite app on his iPhone, and we're only using it to simulate what it looks like when you use a Theodolite to aim on something and record the circle reading. So here, he's 0. And this was a movie, so I just took shots. Now he's over on the right side of the bar, and he's reading approximately 37 degrees at 10 feet away. The next picture is further away. He's at 20 feet approximately. This is just to give you an idea. The bar looks smaller. 0 on the left, and he's reading 18 degrees on the right. Now we back up more. The bar is now smaller. Everything's getting smaller, apparently, but we know the bar is a 2-meter precisely measured bar. So at 30 feet, there's 0, and and he's got 12 degrees on the right. And let's back up one more time.
Yeah, we're off again. I'm sorry. We're going to have to continue this another time. It's just not going to work right now.
Just switch over to Hangouts real quick, Steve. Let's go to Hangouts.
Well, that's going to take too long. I would highly recommend that we just you guys wrap it up while I'm streaming. It'll still record, I think, to the.
Well, hang on. Let's ask them how they feel, because if they feel like still going on, then we'll switch over to Hangouts.
We're still technically live, so the outside feed can probably still hear us, but unfortunately we're still buffering.
That's fine.
So
that's fine. I mean, It's up to you guys. You guys are the guests, so we're completely open to continue if you are. So it's up to you guys. We'll just switch over to Hangouts and try that.
I don't know. I'm not watching the live feed, so I have no idea how bad it is. So I don't know.
It's bad. Yeah, it's this encoder that the new encoder doesn't seem to be working as smoothly as the old one.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Just ditch that encoder and go back to the OBS that you usually do, and then switch over to Hangouts, and nothing will be kind of in the way there.
We wouldn't need OBS if we just went to Hangouts.
While Steve and Kyle work out that, Jaron, let me offer something to you that it's just, I put together information for you that I'd like to share with you at some point. We can do it in a Hangout. We could do it, I don't care, at any time. I'm sincerely trying to share some stuff with you that I think you'd be interested to see that you haven't seen before. And one of the things that I did, I spent a good amount of time digging up some old texts, and I know you like old books. I do too. the whole California thing. When you did Holy Geodesy and you did the 7,300 feet accumulating down to San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
I put together a lot of information for you on how they actually did measure from from San Francisco to San Diego, and I've got those old reports.
Here's what I think. What I struggle with, or I don't think you guys are grasping.
Forget you guys. Just talk to me.
Okay. So what I think you're missing,
because I really don't know. I don't know what anybody else thinks. I only know what I think.
Well, you're saying that, but you're also telling me to go look at books that will tell me how they did this and how they did. Well, I understand that what we've come through. Okay, but exactly. And if you believe history, I don't know God help you.
No. Well, look, you got to look. You got to have filters on, of course. I mean, look, am I going to believe the history of what happened to the American Indian in this country? You got to look at what really happened, right? So, there's a lot of you can really. But that's what I'm talking about.
I mean, it's kind of easy for the mainstream media to do whatever they want to do today. So if that's the case, then anybody who believes anything from 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 500 years ago has completely bought into a religion. It's what's
all right. Well, here's the thing. I hear what you're saying, but look, I look at what they did and how they did it.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that here's the thing. Hold on, let me ask you this though. In a circle, a perfect circle. We don't need to talk about it being, not like the Earth, just a perfect circle. Isn't the definition of a circle constant curvature?
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying, when I say to take a small portion, like you said, you measured 7,300 feet. Okay. Yeah. And you said that it dropped. It showed about what, 8 inches, maybe a foot.
I mean, look, I took a picture. It looked like it was dropping.
Okay.
I didn't measure that.
But if it looked about a foot.
I measured the zenith angles is what I measured.
And if you plugged that all in, what would it come out to that amount of curvature was?
It looked to be, pretty much to that 8 inches per mile squared.
Okay, and I would agree with that. So what I'm saying is, if that is you covering 7,300 feet, and you found that 8 inches, and a circle is constant curvature, then if we had 2,500 people, or it would be less, 25,000, it would be less than that. But if we had people lined up at every point around the Earth till we came back up to the North Pole to North Pole, then you're basically saying that it would be 8 inches of curvature per each of those sections.
No, I'm not. And here's why.
Here's what I'm saying. You're arguing with reality when I just asked you, is a curvature of the circle constant curvature? And you said yes. So then if you measured a portion of that circle, then every equal portion of the circle has to be identical. But you're going to argue with that.
No, I'm not going to argue, Jaron. I'm going to clarify something for you. If you look at where that 8 inches per mile squared comes from and how it was derived, and you look at the charts, you know what the longest distance is on the chart?
Yeah, it's exactly a quarter of the globe.
No, 66 feet or 66 miles. I'm not talking about the curvature charts that flat earthers make with the AutoCAD charts and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the actual use of the 8 inches times the mile squared. It comes from an old book, and in there they chart out 10 mile, 1 mile, 4 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, and I think the last distance is about 66 miles. And the reason for that is that you really can't see much past that. And all the triangulation, when they do triangulation to measure the along the way there, they're measuring maybe 10 to 30, maybe sometimes 40. But then when you get out into the mountainous areas, they'll shoot pretty far because they can see peak to peak. But generally, they're not measuring hundreds and hundreds of miles.
Just FYI, I have to announce we are back live. They say that the video is hit or miss. Some people are actually having no problem. I think the problem that we have, unfortunately, is Skype is just not compatible with this OBS very well. I'm not a big fan of Skype to begin with, and I think that is where it's having the majority of the issue, is that the fact that Skype and this OBS are not playing well together for some reason. So if the outside chat, I have to clear out everything else. You should be able to still hear us. The video is not frozen. It's just that he's not showing anything. I'm going to switch scenes and show that we're not frozen. So you should be able to actually see that we're back. So there's really nothing playing. So if you guys can hear us just fine and you can see that I've just switched screens, then then we're back live. So let me know on the outside chat. I'm going to leave it like that. I am unable to receive outside messages. I'm inundated with messages, and when I go to try to get to those messages, it just messes things up. So I'm not able to talk to anybody right now. I've closed everything out just to keep this going. So please don't message me. Message Kyle if you need to, but I will not get your messages if you're trying to message me about something unless you're in the live chat. So let me know if it's working now, and we can continue from there. So give me a quick check.
And I can wrap this part up. I was just about to finish this part, just so you can see what's going on with.
Yeah, there is no video playing, so if you can hear the audio, that's all you need right now. There's really nothing playing on the video.
Oh, they can't see my screen?
I can change back to your screen. But your screen is your screen is just fixed on a parking lot, it looks like.
Yeah, I was just showing.
Okay.
I'm going to finish this up. So here we are at 40 feet, and the angle there is 9 degrees. So in summary, let's watch these. Here we are at 10 feet. We got 37 degrees. Here we are at 20 feet, 18 degrees. You can see the angles are getting narrower. You can see the bar is getting smaller. And here we are out there at 40 feet. We've measured 9 degrees. This was just a simple demonstration of...
Is that on like some sort of tripod or something? Or how does...
Yeah, that's on a tripod.
No, the camera.
Oh, he's just holding his iPhone using the Theodolite app.
Oh, got you.
That's what that is. And like I said, it was just to simulate angle measurement using a survey theodolite. Okay, now this is in my basement. And now we're going to talk about the vertical aspect. This is a simple little test here, just showing the rod close to the level, and it's 7 feet away, and I'm reading 5.04 feet. And because my basement is perfectly flat, far away in the other room, at some 36.3 feet away, we still read 5.0 feet. This kind of goes back, Jaron, to, and I took these pictures for you, but this goes back to that road discussion.
Go back to the first measurement. I'm sorry. Back a little bit. The first one, that one. Okay.
5.04. Yeah.
5.04. Where are you getting the 04? I'm confused. What you're
5. This is 5. 5,
okay, gotcha.
and then there's a hundredth. That's 5.01, 02, 3, 4, and then this point is 5.05 feet. And you'll notice the 5 looks really big, and then as things go away, they do look smaller, but vertically they don't change.
So you're sure that the crosshair is hitting at the same place? Go back to the other one.
Right there.
Well, I mean, to me, it looks like where's the crosshair going left to right?
This crosshair. See here, this has this special crosshair that branches off in 2 directions. The straight one is this one. Do you see that? Here, I'll make that bigger. See that? That's the horizontal crosshair. This is a wedge. It's used for a special application. Not sure what. I've never really used these. These are not horizontal. They go off. This is the horizontal crosshair.
And then where's the other one? The other measurement?
This one. Yeah, so I just wanted to give you the idea that you could see that, yeah, things look bigger close up.
Well, it actually looks like that measurement changes. I'm trying to see which way it changes.
5.01, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, but I'm saying if you're talking about that kind of distance, if anything was going to reduce with distance, it would be the minuscule amount. No one's saying that refraction from one side of your house to the other would cause things to drop. But it'd be interesting if your measurement showed that it did.
Yeah, but again, this is similar to the other demonstration of the subtense bar. Yeah, things look smaller farther away, and they look bigger close up. But we rely on the fact that that is a known length, and we can measure precisely the distance away using this. Just like that flat Earth perspective tutorial. Watch that video. You talk about people laughing at you. Dude, you laughed at me when, like right about here in the video, I show my picture to the Empire State Building, and you said you didn't even watch further past it. Show me a little respect and watch the effort I put into making this video, and I do a demonstration that you should consider. And then the last thing I do...
I'll watch it again. I didn't watch it the first time because you got the floors wrong on the Statue of Liberty. I mean, on the...
it was not... I took a guess. You know, I didn't know you were guessing. I thought it was around the 95th floor. Is it not the 95th floor? What is it?
I don't remember at this point. I don't remember exactly.
I don't know. I guesstimated that. I mean, I'm not trying to claim I know exactly what floor the crosshair is hitting the building at. No way. I mean,
okay. Well, when I'm trying to do the math and trying to figure out the numbers, and then I find that you're off by, and I don't remember if it was 20 floors or something. Then I said, well, this guy's just making up floors. I didn't know that you were just guessing. I thought you were trying to say which floor it hit.
All right, I'll go back and correct it and say possibly the 95th floor. Or you know what? If we
you don't need to go back and correct it. I'm just telling you why at that point I stopped watching.
Okay, but watch this video because I think you need to answer basically what I'm saying here about perspective. The fact that this laser scanner, I don't have to tell it anything. I don't tell it a thing. You don't even look through it. In fact, you can't take pictures through a telescope on here because it doesn't work that way. It's a laser scanner. It can take pictures though, and it does take pictures, but I mean, it scans this thing so that when you're done, and if you watch it all the way to the end, I show you the result of the laser scan, and it looks like molecules. I mean, it locates things to the, every 1/8 inch. It's amazing. It looks like a photograph actually, and it's actually dots, 3-dimensional dots in space. And look at that perspective there. The fact is these bridge members are all the same size. They just look smaller, farther away. That's all. And I'm just trying to bring a bit of reality to this discussion on perspective. Let me see what's last in this folder, and then I'll turn it over to you if you want to. Yeah, I think that was my perspective folder. I will show you the other folders I have if you're interested in anything here. Otherwise, I'll turn over to you. I wanted to talk about this. There's a lot of work in here, this Holy Geodesy, which is in answer to the video you made. We just did perspective. I wanted to talk about horizontal horizon to the eye level. If you want to go
Jesse,
into
real
that.
quick. Let me interrupt you real quick, Jesse. While you kind of get your stuff together on your end as far as your next folders, let's go ahead and actually switch it over to Jeranism so he can have a chance to kind of.
That's what I was just offering. You want me to
convo there?
Yeah, that's fine. Do I have to give up the screen, or do you just?
No, I think I'll just
go ahead and just switch it over and
stop sharing. I'll do.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, I'll plaster the other thing.
All right.
Okay, you good to go?
Jeranism.
Okay, so just showing that this is a video by Phuket Word, and if we assume that this bridge is level and not curving like a ball, that we see that when you get really down to the ground, like again, we are very small beings on a very large Earth. So when you get down to what a human perspective would be, you're going to see that you lose the entire end of this bridge. And what you get is this mirage, this mirroring, which surprisingly enough looks identical to the mirroring and miraging that we see from Soundly. Yet he wants to go around screaming, this is proof that the Earth curves, when you can just go to videos by other people and see, no, it's actually not at all. It actually shows exactly what he's been showing, that this is a mirrored section of the sky behind it. This is where the road should be. Because look, the road ends about where my mouse is. Okay, which seems crazy. You're like, no, it doesn't end way up there, but it actually does. When you zoom up, you'll see that the line is about way up here. So watch when he comes up here in a second. And what we're seeing is exactly what we see when we go to the ocean, when we go to beaches. Let me get you that point where he shows it. So, he even draws a line up here. You're like, what? That's where the line is. But when you get back and you zoom out, you'll see that that's how far away. So now picture we're at the ocean. When you're at the ocean, it's even worse than a road because it's the most mirrored surface that there is. It's water. So when you're at an ocean, you're getting the most amount of distortion. And when a boat starts going away from you, then it shouldn't surprise anybody that we're losing the boat from the bottom first. Now, that was used from antiquity for people to say that the Earth was round. And you know what? I believe them. That 2,000 years ago, I would have thought the Earth was round. I would have looked out and seen boats disappear from the bottom. They would have come back, and I would have been like, where'd you go? They said, we just went that way. I'd be like, well, we saw you disappear over the edge. And they said, no, we just went that way. Oh, shit, the Earth must be a ball. Makes sense. That's the only way you could go that way, lose the boat from the bottom, and it disappear. Now today we have optics, we have zoom lenses, we have P900s. And when we do the same work that they did back then, now we realize, oh, wait a second. The boat isn't going over the curve. The boat is being miraged from the bottom up. And people want to go around saying, well, where does this come from? Why does anybody say that? Boats, but we don't get any more. Where's the videos of boats actually behind the curve? If they are, wouldn't we just assume, or not assume, but wouldn't we come to the conclusion that this is exactly what's happening? That any boat or any car going away from us right now would be gone from the bottom up, because the tires would be miraged, and we would only see the top of the little car floating down here at the end of this bridge, and people would be like, the car's behind the curve, but it's not. And so when this has a guy on a bike here in a second, and you'll see when the guy on the bike goes by, here he goes, that again, just like a boat, we see it getting distorted, starts to get kind of gross, and then you'll see that from the bottom up, he starts to disappear, and before you know it, you just see the top half of this man riding down off into the distance. So these are real-world experiments. They're examples showing why what the ancients called their reasoning for the Earth to be round isn't exactly sound evidence. And a good starting point for people to admit would be, oh, you're right, they were wrong about that. Now let's calculate. But there's still people who will disagree with this completely and say, no, Red's rhetoric would show this video and say, this is the red sail of the boat. Where's the bottom? And then he would superimpose a picture of this guy on the bike here and say, clearly it's missing the entire bottom part of the bike. And people think that that's evidence. And it's not. It clearly is just people not understanding what they're seeing. And if we do measure the distances that we are seeing boats, they are way further than the ball Earth allows. When we look at Pic de Canigao, that is 170 miles away, and we see that, and people employ refraction to say that somehow light is lifting up the huge mountain chain and displaying it for you at the horizon line, it's time for people to wake up and say, just because we were taught something doesn't mean that it's the case. And we can look into things and not be so afraid of what others will say. But I can imagine why nobody's coming to Flat Earth, or why nobody wants to look into it. It's because you will get made fun of for asking questions and pointing things out to people. You'll get called every name in the book, get told to drink bleach, get told your family should be gassed because you're questioning the shape of the Earth. I mean, come on.
Jeranism, I have a question, if you don't mind, real quick, just on my own accord. I've always wondered why the cover up in the first place. Like, what is the are
you asking my opinion?
Yeah, just your opinion. Why the cover up? Why is it not something that they're willing to admit?
I feel like I'm in a unique position because unfortunately, a lot of flat earthers are Christians, and I disagree with Christianity. I do not believe Jesus is my savior. I don't think that he rose from the dead. I don't think he was born of a virgin. I'm not 100% positive the guy lived. So it bothers me that we do have a lot of people on that side of the fence. I can't control everybody's thoughts. If they want to believe that, they can believe it. But I think what happened was we had science who came along and saw the church running this world and said, this is crap. We don't want to be under control of the pontiff. We don't want to be, rightfully so. And they said, let's investigate things and let's show things for what they really are. Let's do testing. And they did. And when they started to do that, they were finding great things. That's how we have every convenience that we have today. My cell phone, my computer, is all because of science. Fantastic. But they may have made such a strong push for certain things that if they ever establish something as a fact, and we're making fun of the church saying, you thought the earth was flat, we knew it was round, blah, 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 blah. If they ever got to a point where they realized they were wrong about the shape of the earth, there's no way that they could ever admit it. Number one, because science is built off the idea of naturalism, or that there is no creator, that there is no reason for us to be here. There's no point of it. It's just an accident. We're all stardust.
Some scientists feel that way. Not all scientists feel that way.
Well, if you don't believe in evolution, then you're not going to be a scientist. It basically is.
There's a lot of scientists that don't believe in evolution.
Not a lot, but
yes, there are.
Okay.
They can't come out and say so.
Oh, okay.
Look, I think we're a little getting off topic. Let's kind of stick with the flat Earth stuff
I'd like to get back to this video
stuff
here. Can we get back to this video?
Right. Well, you asked me a question, and I was answering the question. Yeah. So if you want me to stay on subject, then don't ask a question that has nothing to do with the subject. It was ridiculous.
But did you get to the point of answering why the
I'm
cover
getting
up?
to the point. The cover up is because they've had to protect the fact that they were wrong about the shape of the Earth, and rather than go back because even today, if people found out that the Earth was flat, well, it's going to be tough to keep the churches from saying, haha, we were right. and then have people kind of move back towards the church. I don't want that any more than anybody else. I want people to recognize the truth and realize that we don't need religions. We've moved past those days in our lives. We don't need structured, organized priest class telling us what is the truth. But that's what science has become. And I see it as a more scary religion because they're actually saying our religion is the truth. And they're getting people to gather around them and say everything that you're teaching people in schools. I had to go to education just like everybody else. And I was taught things about science were the truth. I was taught Pluto was a planet. Well, it's not anymore. So these things are...
I think it is again.
Okay, maybe it is again. Well, that's my point.
I don't know.
Science is ever changing. Science should be ever evolving. And yet we have people out there that will tell you that things are a fact. And when things come out like the WMD map and things that are showing us that we may be the center of the universe, and then you go look into these things, there's just a group of science people that will laugh and joke at you, call you names, when you're even repeating their own science. They just refuse because they've gotten into science because they're atheists. And they realize that's the religion for an atheist, so they go there. And any idea of, to me, it's obvious that we are a created entity. I'm not saying I believe in any kind of creation that any book teaches me. I simply can recognize that if things were supposed to go to disaster, there would be nothing here. There is stuff here. There is life. There is light. So those tells me that those things came with a reason. They came with a intent. Or else if there was no intent, then there would be nothing here. You can't just have accidents in space and get planets with people on them. So anyway, hold on.
Can I summarize that with that explanation that this is why there's this huge, I guess it would have to be a gigantic amount of people in on the cover-up that Kyle asked about, right?
So few people. So few, because you've built the entire thing around a faulty foundation. So in order to find that fault, you would have to go back and really start examining the whole line. And that's not going to happen, meaning people...
But Jaron, tomorrow you could go out and measure the size and shape of the Earth. Tomorrow.
How? How would you do that?
Do you have friends living in different places in the country?
Sure.
Okay. You guys all could agree that on March the 21st, why should I say this? Because I think this was talked about before and you had a reason for not doing it, but you could all simultaneously or at different times, you could measure your own latitudes with just a straw, a protractor, a piece of string, and a weight. You could do it to Polaris. You could do it using a gnome, just a stick stuck in the ground and measuring a shadow, just the way the ancients did. You could, and these are things. These like
what you're describing is correct, right? We can triangulate. So we triangulate the moon to get its distance. Can we triangulate the sun? It's the same size. So
yeah, but I'm not even talking about that.
But you're missing the point then.
No. I'm only talking about the shape of the Earth and the size of it. And you could do it tomorrow. With
how?
Like I said, if you could get one other participant south of you. You're up near kind of San Francisco, right? In that general area?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you know anybody down in the southern end of California?
Sure.
Do you think the two of you could measure your difference in latitude?
Based on stars?
You could do Polaris at night, and the next day you could use the sun at noon.
Okay.
And if you just Google measure latitude activity, you'll find all kinds of little kits that you could print out a protractor. You don't even have to buy one. Use a straw.
Want me to use the sun to triangulate, even though I cannot triangulate the sun's distance?
You don't need to know the distance. We're talking about the angle, just the angle.
It makes a big difference if the sun is 93 million miles away.
Doesn't matter how far.
Yeah. Yes, well, it does.
Again, well, listen. If you do this at night using Polaris, and we don't need to know how far away Polaris is just to measure its angle, right?
No. Okay. Your angle is okay.
Now the same thing. If you use the sun the very next day or some other day, it doesn't have to be the very next day. I don't know why I'm saying that.
You're missing my point, because the sun is the angles that the sun creates. And finally, Neil deGrasse Tyson finally admitted this. It's one of those things that we've had to pull teeth on, that it's the same, whether or not if you're talking about the measurements of the two sticks, whether the sun is close and small or whether it's far and big would yield the same results. So you're talking about angles of sticks. The reason that the angles of sticks are different is because they say the sun is so far and all the angles come in parallel. But if the sun is close and the angles come in, they wouldn't be parallel. They would be like we see when we look at crepuscular rays. Then the angles would be different at 50 miles away. And the reason that we're getting different angles is because the sun is close and small. And every single observation we make tells us that the sun is close and small. Now, granted, science tells us different.
Okay. I don't agree with you, but you
so
can
tell
make
me
that
what
claim.
observation
So,
what observation do you make that says it's far?
I personally have not triangulated to determine the distance to the sun.
You can't. So that's why you haven't done it, because it's impossible. So if what I'm saying is every single observation we make with our senses tells us the sun is close and small, and you laughed at that. So tell me why it's wrong. It is a true statement what I said. Granted, it's not the truth according to science. Science says it's, our senses are wrong in this case. Just like they believe we can see 25 trillion miles away and see stars.
All right. So what you're saying is that you cannot measure your latitude. I was suggesting a way to measure the latitude, and I'm learning that I'm mistaken about that. I'm not saying that's true. I thought you were saying to use the sun, and I said I don't want to use the sun if we can't triangulate to it. Then just use Polaris. I found it interesting that you can use Polaris at night, and then you can use the sun the next day, and you'll come up with the same answer. I think that's telling of something. I mean, it's worth investigating. And
I wouldn't disagree with that.
I think the thing is like it's worth trying these things. I find that I haven't found a flat earther yet that has come to their belief or their conclusion because they did some type of measuring. So I just throw it out there. Have you ever tried measuring your latitude? I find that to be an interesting thing, and it is the thing that you talk about me when I say, hey, it's history, and this is the history. This is where geodesy began, was the measuring of latitude, and that was their interest to know.
Jesse, let's actually, because we're kind of all over the place.
Off the subject.
Yeah, we're really going all over the place here, and I'm looking at the live feed. I'm looking at everything else. I'm trying to kind of get this back on track here, because I think we've gone down too many rabbit holes, and it's already been like 2 hours. Do you really want to, like, just for a little while, just can you concentrate on geodesy, and Jesse, tell us why you think geodesy disproves a flat Earth or proves a round Earth, and I use the word proof there very colloquially, okay? And then maybe Jeranism can kind of like put a counter to that, because I think we're just going down too many rabbit holes here.
Gotcha.
That's fine.
Okay. So why do you think geodesy actually shows us what you think it shows us?
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to share my screen.
Go ahead.
Let's see.
Oh, do I have to stop? Sorry. Oops. Here. And stop sharing. Okay, stopped.
That portion of the video from that point to the end of this, to this next transition.
We seem to have a background video playing.
Oh, sorry, that was me.
Okay. So Jesse, just real quick, because I want to give Jeranism a little time here. Just in a minute or less, can you just kind of put your argument out there and let Jeranism kind of explain a rebuttal to it from his perspective?
Well, I've shown this to him before. This is the video he made called Holy Geodesy, a sermon by me on the curvature of the Earth. And this is the part of the video that he counts out these segments of 7,300 feet, comes up with this calculation. I guess this is what you do call a straw man, because he says this is what I would have done. I would not have done this. This is just not... This is a misrepresentation or a misunderstanding, and I wanted him to understand that what I would have done is just measured this with GPS. I can measure that in minutes.
Okay. Darren, why don't you take some time to respond to that? I do want to give Jeranism some time here. Jesse, I think we've kind of like been a little one-sided here, and I do want to make sure that he has a chance to respond. If that's okay.
Well, and if that's the way it came across, again, I don't mean to build straw man. I try and make sure I don't. But what I was saying is, if Jesse measured this amount from this distance and then he did this. So I guess you can call that building a straw man, because I was taking what you've done. A circle to me is constant curvature, which means any segment of that circle has to be equal to any other segment of the circle. It's the same thing. Now, granted, everyone tells me you can't just add those up, but if somebody measures 8 inches of drop in 7,300 feet, then if we went every 7,300 feet and it was a perfect circle, then every single one of those people would have to measure 8 inches of drop. And when you take that as a whole, and you look at the Earth of being 25,000 miles in circumference, and you say every 7,300 feet we only measure 8 inches of curvature, then you're going to be hilariously short when you get to the end of 25,000 miles of where you should be. You should be back where you started at the North Pole, and you would be nowhere. I think one time before I just did it on GeoGebra just to see, I went out 6,300, I forgot the exact number, 63,360, I think, inches, which is a mile, and then dropped your marker 8 inches. And then go out another 6,300 inches and drop 8 inches. And it's hilarious where you end up at the end. You have a huge long line and you're barely down a tiny little fraction. But that's basically, now granted, I understand that they'll say, well, no, Jaron, you're not measuring the circle right. It's exponential growth and you have to measure from the top position. And so it grows. Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is I think that they've hidden the fact that you don't measure a circle that way. Of course, they want you to, because they've made it so that by the time you get to the point where things start drastically curving away from you, you can't see that far. So effectively, it's a great way to mask the curvature of the Earth. To me, the curvature of the Earth would have to be much more than what we're told. It's not 8 inches in the first mile, because then if you went to the end of that mile and measured again, you should only see 8 inches. And you went to the end of that mile and measured again, that's what a circle is. It's the definition of a circle is constant curvature. So it's not exponential curvature. That's not the definition. That's the definition if you start at 12 o'clock and say, okay, now we're going to measure only from this position and come all the way around. But what that tells me, and I could be wrong about this, I've said this before, I know nobody likes to hear my math, but that number 0.318 is a big number to me because that is inherent in a circle and it seems to be hidden to me. I mean, Steve, have you ever heard the number 0.318 as applied to a circle?
0.318?
Yeah.
No, I know 3.14159265358979232 something.
Hey, they're good. So but, if I told you we know the circumference of a circle, right? So let's say it's 25,000 miles. What is the equation to get the diameter?
Circumference is equal to the diameter times pi.
Say it again. Sorry. No, I said circumference. We know the circumference.
Then you divide it by pi and you get diameter.
So you take the circumference divided by pi?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Is that what C equals? It's C equals pi divided by 2?
2 times your diameter is your circumference, is it not?
No, I think isn't it 2 pi r?
No, 2 r is your diameter. 2 of your radii
okay, I got that.
Is your diameter, right?
Okay. Right, and then how do we get the circumference with a known circumference? So, like, if the circumference
diameter times pi, or 2 r pi.
Okay, so let's just say we only know that the circle is 14 centimeters. So, and then I'm saying, what is the diameter? How would you figure that out?
Circumference divided by pi.
Circumference divided by 3.14 is the diameter.
Is it not?
No, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I thought you knew the equations. I didn't think there was an equation for if you know the circumference. Because
Jesse, am I not correct here?
Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm tuned out. I'm sorry, but you guys talked about getting off topic, and
yeah, well, okay. Look at the. Hang on. Yeah. 2 pi r is the same thing as saying pi d. D is equal to 2r because your diameter is 2 of your radius is from the center of the circle. So if I say the circumference is equal to 2 pi r, it's the same thing as saying circumference is equal to pi times d. Did I say division? I didn't. If I did, I didn't mean to. Circumference is diameter times pi. So if you have, you take your diameter, you times it by pi, that gives you your circumference. So circumference is c divided by pi equals d, or c divided by pi equals 2r because 2r equals d. Is that not correct, people?
I guess where I'm confused is you're saying C divided by 2R?
You can take C divided by 2R, which gives you pi.
So what I
2R is equal to D.
Okay, so I said we only know the circumference is 14, let's say. I just made that up, but I'm saying, you're saying now to get the equation would be C over 2R, but we don't know what R is.
Well, you have to know either the radius or the diameter, or you can take C divided by pi, and that'll give you 2R, or C divided by pi will give you D.
Okay, I'll check back on that, because I thought that you had to multiply the circumference by the reciprocal of pi. The reciprocal of pi is 0.318.
Well, C divided by pi is multiplying. The division is the reciprocal function of multiplication.
So if you take the circumference times, circumference divided by pi is
2R or D.
Is the diameter?
Yeah, 2R is equal to diameter. Diameters. Okay, look at Jaron. And by the way, I don't know why I'm doing the math thing here, but when you have a circle, right? The diameter is the chord that stretches from the 2 points that are furthest apart on any given points on a circle. Half of that is equal to your radius, which is the extension from the middle of the circle to any point on the circle. So 2R is equal to, 2R times pi will give you the circumference. But you can substitute D in for 2R, and you just get C equals D times pi.
C equals D times pi. No, I could be totally wrong.
I think you might be thinking. Are you thinking like maybe the area of a circle or something? I don't know what. No. I don't know where you're going with this, and so I'm not sure. But basically, yeah, pi is defined to be the ratio of the circus. Which it says. No, sorry. The definition of pi is basically pi is equal to circumference divided by diameter, or circumference divided by 2R, because 2R is equal to D. Right. And unless I failed third grade math, I think that's pretty well correct.
Well, I probably did, but I thought that there was.
So did I.
guess I was confused of the relationship.
If anybody wants to try to correct me on that, I'm pretty sure that's correct. I think I remember my basic geometry, but I don't round to 3.18 because normally when you do a equation, you want to get 5, 6. Yeah, you want to go 3.14159 mostly, if you can.
I was saying that the reciprocal of pi is not really.
Oh, I'm not sure with the reciprocal. You just take 1 divided by 3.14159, whatever that comes out to be.
Which is 0.318.
That might be true. Yeah, I don't take I don't figure it that way, but sure, you might be right. It sounds about right.
Well, and what I was saying is that is the, in my opinion, that's the ratio of curvature of a circle. It's 0.318 blank per blank. If you're talking about miles, it would be 0.318 miles per mile, because it is the, if you were walking from the North Pole to the South Pole, and we know that that's on the globe would be 8,000 miles if you went through the center of the Earth, right? So let's say you walk North Pole to South Pole, but you're able to go through the center of the ball Earth. That would be 8,000 miles. But to go around the ball Earth to get to the bottom, it would take 12,500, right? So that tells me that the amount of curvature that you're going over is equal to the radius. So anytime you're going on a circle to get from North Pole to North Pole, you're basically going over a diameter's worth of curvature. And so when you realize that, then you realize that a circle, the amount of curvature per circle is the diameter. So if you have the diameter of the Earth is 8,000 and it's 25,000 miles in circumference, then that's 0.318 is the ratio of the diameter to the circumference. So does that make sense?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You guys want to keep going on that?
Well, what I was trying to say,
I have nothing to add on that. No.
I mean, do you guys? What do you
I'm pretty sure 2R is equal to D. I think I'm quite sure of that.
What do you guys think about state boundaries? The border.
Well, I think you have to kind of indulge him a little bit, because he's going to try to tie that into what his ultimate point is. I think cutting him off right now would be
what I'm trying to say is that the math that I'm talking about is not the math that we're taught. That's why I'm saying I'm just saying, if you ask somebody what's the curvature of a circle, they come up with a crazy nonsense bunch of jargon. If I said, what's the curvature of a circle, that's 1,000 miles around, somebody would not be able to tell me that answer, because there's a convoluted explanation for curvature. Well, but we know that a circle is constant curvature. So if there's a constant curvature going on in every circle, then there has to be a relationship with each circle. And They've taught us about pi. Pi is the relationship of the radius to the circumference. But what they didn't tell us, I think, is that curvature of a circle.
No, that's not what it is. It's not it's not the ratio to the radius. It's literally defined as the circumference divided by the diameter. That is what pi is. There's different ways to find pi. You can use many different methods. You can use what's called a Taylor expansion. I don't remember the exact formula for it, but you can use many different ways to actually determine pi. But it is actually defined to be the actual ratio of c divided by lowercase d. That's what it's defined to be.
C divided by lowercase d.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I was saying is if we know what c is, then you're saying to get the diameter, you would just divide by pi? That's what I'm asking.
You could take c and divide it by pi, and that'll give you 2r, and 2r is equal to d. So c divided by pi is equal to d. Yeah, if c divided by t, if c divided by d is equal to pi.
Are people still watching this?
Oh yeah. All you do is switch. Look at c divided by d is equal to pi. You just switch pi and d, and you end up with c divided by pi equals d. It's a very simple substitution across the equal sign.
Yeah, and what did I say wrong? I said that the circumference was the relationship between the
ratio and diameter. It's not the ratio of the ratio to the radius and diameter. It's circumference to diameter. Unless I heard you correct.
I may have said it wrong, but okay. I mean,
okay.
If the diameter is 1, then the circumference is 3.14. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm saying is if you ask somebody what is the curvature on that 3.14 ball, they would have a hard time telling you because it's not really something that, at least I've found anybody that can explain it to me. But you can take that 3.14 and multiply it by 0.318 and get what the curvature of that circle is, which is going to be the radius, which is going to be, like you said, basically half of the diameter, right? Because that is the amount of curvature that you're going when you go all the way around a ball. You're basically going twice the radius, right? Which is the diameter. So what I'm saying is, isn't that the ratio of curvature of a circle? The ratio of curvature of a circle is going to be 0.318 miles per mile or feet per feet. If you have a 1,000-mile ball, then you would take 1,000 times, or it's 0.318 or 318 of 1,000. It is the constant curvature that would remain the same, and the only thing that would make a difference to it is necessarily the size of the radius, because then you have more. If it's a 10-mile ball, well, then you've got 0.318 miles per mile, but that's going to be a bigger amount. If you're talking about a car turning a steering wheel, it's how much you turn the steering wheel, right? Well, the bigger the bigger the circle, the less you'd have to turn the steering wheel. Correct? I guess I'm not making any sense. Sorry. I shouldn't have gone off on that. But that's what I'm trying to tell Jesse, that I think that when they're talking about measuring a circle, that they want us to keep using this exponential function, which I understand why, because if I'm standing at the North Pole looking off into the distance, that the Earth is going to curve away from me exponentially. I understand that. What I've been trying to figure out and ask this for 3 years, and if somebody's got the answer, I would love to have it, is if a circle is constant curvature, then what is the amount per section? Meaning, if we're measuring a mile, what is the amount of curvature that should be seen in a mile that should be seen in every mile? And they say you can't add up curvature like that, which this is where I have this disconnect. And that's what I'm trying to ask you guys, because I have never claimed to be a math major or be even intelligent in math. I'm trying to ask the question.
Jaron, why don't we look at how they did do it? Because they didn't do it that way, but can we look at what they did do?
Sure, but people get confused on that because you're going to say that they've measured the surface of the Earth, but they measured the surface.
I'm not going to say that at all.
They assume that the Earth was a ball, and they assume
No, not at all.
So they measured the oceans, Jesse? Who measured the Pacific Ocean? Who measured the curvature of the Pacific Ocean? Tell me. Who measured the curvature of who went out there with stakes and chains and measured the curvature of the Pacific Ocean?
Nobody.
Right. So it was
nobody did that, but you can measure it today using GPS, but you don't think that's for real. But
it's not that I don't think it's for real. I mean, I can go read any article that tells me exactly about what GPS is and who owns it and who put it there and for what reason, and the fact that now you can't really you don't know that what you're getting from GPS is correct. It's just what's been given to you.
Well, I got curious about that. I actually made a video about it. I've used GPS in places where there's absolutely no cell signal of any kind. No, there are no towers. Okay, and it works perfectly fine. So,
right.
I've also in that video, it's this video right here. This one here, GPS antennas mounted on buildings, proof. That's my sense of humor, by the way. You should watch this video because I go into the details of the raw data that you can look at. It's not binary. It's a text file in ASCII text. You can look at it and decode it yourself. And you can build your own GPS receiver with parts.
So let me ask you this: let
me just finish this. Inside the file, it tells you where the transmitters are. It gives you the coordinates of the location where the carrier phase signals are being transmitted from. They're in the file. I guess that's part of the hoax. I guess I don't know.
Well, yeah, that would be part of the hoax. But what I'm trying to say is,
but don't you think that it's upon you and people who want to say that to show how they do that? How is that possible?
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Do you not think it's possible that people who wanted to fool you about where you live could say that they put up satellites, but really just put up some balloons that are, and it's a known fact that there's balloons that can stay up for a year at a time and maintain identical locations. I'm not saying that every that there's balloons all above us or whatever, but there's admitted like 10,000 balloons at a time that are up there.
Let me ask you a question about these balloons.
I was just going to finish. Let me finish.
All right, go ahead.
Is it possible that somebody could fool you, or are you going to take the position that it's impossible for you to be fooled about your location?
Oh, I could be fooled by anything, but let me ask you a question about how they would do it with balloons. Balloons are what? They're just kind of floating around, right?
They don't. They can stay in the same position.
Okay. Well, these things are moving, and therefore you could take the ephemeris from the receiver today, take that ephemeris and put it in planning software, and find out what satellites will be available a week from now at a certain time of day. You see what I'm saying? Almost similar to, asking when is the next eclipse or when is the next celestial event, whatever. The same thing. You can actually plan for what satellites you want to be viewing at what time of day and in what part of the world.
Okay, so hold on, I just want to make sure I understand, because I want to make sure, because I want to know what you're talking about. So you're saying that the device that you have tells you which satellite you're talking to when you're doing GPS surveying?
Yes, when you are out doing your work, you can flip to a screen and you can see which satellites are in view right now. You can then also look at the ones that are rising and the ones that are setting. You can see the ones that are coming up over the horizon.
My question would be, why would you not have those in geosynchronous orbit? If you're talking about the measurement of the Earth and where we are at, why would those be the satellites that are in orbit when you could just put them into geosynchronous orbit so that they don't go above and below the horizon?
So you're asking me why they designed the system the way they did?
Yes.
There are some geosynchronous satellites being used. The Japanese system is geosynchronous. The United States GPS system relies on orbits. They orbit the Earth twice a day. They're inclined to the equator at 55 degrees. And they used to just transmit two signals, L1 and L2. Now they're transmitting 5 or more signals with codes on the signals. The Chinese have a system called BeiDou. The Russians have a system called GLONASS. The equipment I use tracks GPS, United States GPS, Russian GLONASS, European Galileo, and what am I leaving out? BeiDou, Chinese BeiDou. So you can download one of the things you need beside the carrier phase measurements you need the ephemeris, the navigation file, which tells you the location of the satellites. That's how we trilaterate. That's how you get your position. You can take that ephemeris and use it as an almanac to predict the location of what kind of constellation you're going to have days from now or weeks from now. So
So okay, so I'm going to be
that's how it works.
okay. So I'm referring right now to a PDF. I want to give you the name of it so you know. It is the Principles and Practice of GPS Surveying, revised 1997, National Library of Australia, and it has different chapters. This is what I was reading recently that it basically backed up what I thought about GPS. So I want to read you something, and you tell me if this is correct, because it says in order to sorry, that's not the part. Go ahead while I look for this exact section that talks about the ephemeris, everything you're talking about, because it basically says that it's a military-controlled situation where you don't know what they're saying is absolutely correct at all. Are
you reading right now, or are you paraphrasing?
No, sorry, I'm paraphrasing while I'm looking for it, but you can go ahead and talk while I find exactly what I'm trying to tell you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll go back and talk about... I just have a question when you're ready.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read this to you now. It says, this is implications of opting for a satellite positioning system. There are a number of implications to the use of the satellite-based positioning system. One, the satellites must be placed in suitable orbits so as to be seen by as many users as possible from all locations of the Earth, okay? The reference coordinate datum to which they relate is largely defined by system controllers, okay? Users do not have a direct interest or control in the system, and policy decisions regarding the operation of the system tend to be made by the sponsoring agency. By replacing monumented ground control stations with satellites, the well-established procedures for terrestrial surveying and navigation are no longer valid. The orbiting control stations are invisible to the user. So you just told me the opposite of that. It says here the orbiting control stations are invisible. You said you know where they're at exactly. Position determination.
No. You're talking about the ground segment. They're at Diego Garcia, Ascension Island, Colorado. You're talking about there's three components to these navigation systems. One is the space platform, the satellites.
Okay.
One is the user segment. That's us, UPS, 911 emergency, everybody that uses GPS on their phones. That's the user segment. And the control segment in the United States is the United States Air Force. And they are the control segment. They are the ones who track the satellites and predict their orbits. They upload the ephemeris files to the satellites periodically every day. It's like, I've lost track of how often it is, but maybe it's every 3 hours, I forget. But it's all published too. This is all like not hidden. This is known. Why? Because manufacturers need to know. This is kind of like an open source. This is how the system works, so that manufacturers can compete in the market and develop their own ways of doing things to try to gain an edge over the competitor. So you have all these different people making GPS equipment that.
But GPS is open source?
The what do you call it? What is the name of that document? There is a document, if you want to get it, it tells you how GPS works. It tells you the frequencies. It tells you everything, so that manufacturers have an even playing field on creating their products. And that's how it works. So they have to know how to write their software to decode the signals that are being transmitted. Otherwise, you'd be guessing. How could you make a GPS receiver if you didn't know how it was operating?
Because I thought that was controlled with like hidden codes, basically.
No. Well,
you're saying GPS is open source.
No, I'm saying there's what is the name of this document? I should have. Jaron. Hey. I don't have it at my fingertips, Jaron. But if you look at this video, I do have that document in the video. GPS antennas mounted on buildings, and there's a document that the government produces that talks about or lays out, explains how GPS functions, so that private companies can make the equipment that people go and buy, but they buy Garmin's or Magellan's or you name it, or survey grade equipment, or the equipment that goes on all the construction equipment on bulldozers, road graders, whatever, navigation equipment for boats and airplanes,
I've
everything.
I've seen several places where people who send up like drones, right?
Yeah.
Where they've tried to decode the GPS signals that they're in their controllers or in their drones, and it's blocked. You cannot get any of that information. So I'm saying,
Well, you mean at
how
a
is
certain height, or you're talking about people that send up high altitude balloons, or what are you talking about?
if you try and decode yes, your receiver will tell you your location, but if you try and get the codes out of that, it's masked. You can't get it's not like there's a signal being sent to your computer that's scrambled, right? Or that's sent to your controller, and there's a secret code that unscrambles that for your receiver to know where you're actually located or where your drone is. But that's not open source.
No. It's not like that. The L1 and L2 frequencies are known. 1575.42 megahertz. I forget what L2 is, and I don't know what L5 is. I used to know all these numbers right on the top of my head. They are known frequencies, and they're modulated with known codes at a certain beat frequency. This is all known. You can't position without knowing what you're receiving. So that's all known.
Okay, but it's in a code that's in a receiver. You don't know. The receiver knows.
Well, the receiver's listening. It's a radio receiver.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, I don't know why this is so difficult for people to understand. What I'm saying is that just like the pictures of Earth that people see from satellites, that I'm saying that those things are going through a system before they get to you. No human being, unless you believe in the moon landings, no human being has seen the Earth in my opinion, ever.
We just jumped from GPS to seeing the Earth.
There's a reason why. There's a reason why. Let me finish the statement. Okay. Because I'm trying to say that when a satellite sends a picture to Earth, nobody gets to see the actual result of the photograph of the satellite. They get to see it after it's been entered into a computer and processed. Then it comes out and you get to see the picture. Same thing with GPS. You don't know that what's being sent from the satellite. So somebody could fool you by sending a code from a satellite that tells your little GPS receiver where it wants to tell you that you are. And I'm saying that is not open source. You cannot play with that code. The receiver knows it, and the satellite sending it knows it, and that's all that but you're left in the dark.
That's not true.
Okay, that's what I'm asking you. So how can you break that down?
Well, like I said, get the document that defines how GPS operates and read it. You would be reading the same thing that Trimble or Leica or Topcon or any other manufacturer gets a hold of and builds their equipment based on that specification. So in that sense, it's open source in the sense that everyone's on the same playing field. We all know how to build our equipment and how to make it work. And it all works similarly. I can take one manufacturer and test it on a point, pull it off, put on a different manufacturer's GPS, put it on the point. We're going to get the same position. I don't know what else to say about it. It works. And it definitely works in areas where I've been out in the middle of Texas. I've been in Peru before cell phones. I mean, I've been using GPS way before cell phones. Okay. And it works. So a lot of this is just a bunch of junk, really. And I'm not calling you someone who's passing off junk, but all these memes and all this stuff is junk.
Oh, I agree.
People are saying these things without verifying it for themselves. That's one. Two.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, how can you?
But the second part is, if you're going to make that claim, talk about how. Don't just show a picture of a cell tower and go, "See, it comes from cell towers." I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yes. So my concern is with GPS that it is a controlled, government-owned, military-run system, which doesn't mean it's right off the bat. But when you get your signal, you're just responding to a device, correct? I mean, what it tells you is what you're assuming is correct. And now these station markers that we used to have, or these, like you said, you saw when you were a kid or whatever, these round, those things are no longer in effect. That now it's based on GPS.
That's not true. These right here, you go put your GPS on there and you're going to get that position that's published. You're going to, where do I want to be? Hold on a second.
Why would it?
I did want to show you this part right here. All this triangulation that was done, for all that time, right?
Yeah,
This is how it was done way before GPS. If you put your GPS on any of these marks, these discs, you're going to get that position.
Okay, so I want to read you what I'm getting this from, because I don't want you to think I'm not, because it sounds like what you're saying is different than what I've read papers about it. This says the global positioning system is space-based microwave 24-hour all-weather global military navigation system designed, developed, financed by the United States military authorities. Since GPS was declared operational in 93, it has had a profound impact on the art and practice of most forms of position and navigation. However, GPS has already had a tremendous impact on surveying, initially as a technology for control surveys, for which purpose it was first introduced into many countries in the early 80s, well before the full satellite constellation was available to navigation users. In fact, the application of GPS of control surveys, or so-called geodetic surveys, was the first civilian use of GPS, which was well beyond that which GPS was originally intended. Now, this next one is what I was saying. Nowadays, GPS surveying techniques have completely replaced technology such as Doppler satellite positioning, and even long-range EDM for traditional first and lower-order control surveys. However, the adoption of GPS is not restricted to control survey applications. More and more GPS is being used for cadastral, topographical, engineering surveys. The constraints that have previously restricted the application of GPS technologies, those including cost, productivity, are being aggressively addressed by manufacturers, and it is the condition predicted by GPS will shortly be used for the majority of surveyors. By working through these topics, skip that part, is talking about what the student will learn here. Says, in addition to focusing on specialist technology of GPS surveying and subcategories of conventional surveying, as well as the modern surveying, we will also be covering the contributing increasing popularity of GPS and the evolution of precise GPS mapping. Technology cannot be used for the so-called static mode to a technique that has been tremendous flexibility, including being able to be used in kinematic mode. This increases the number of range of applications. That's not the part I was looking for.
It's all great so far. I love it.
Yeah. Well, it's the part that talks about it being the, I was reading it before and you stopped me, but the
control segment.
Yeah, the control stations are no longer monitored or are no longer applicable. And you're saying that if you go put a GPS locator on any one, it will read exactly what's read on the control marker. So why would they not be? If you're saying that there's markers out in the earth and those markers match identically to what is coming up on a receiver, then why would they say that it's no longer applicable? That's my first question.
I'm not sure that I heard that correctly. Where does it say it's not applicable?
Okay. Let me get to that part again. It's right down here.
I could take a guess at what you're talking about, but it just didn't make sense to me with the way.
Yeah, that's why I'll read it again. But it says implications of opting for a satellite positioning system, which is what we currently have, which is GPS, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then that number down there said users do not have direct interest or control in the system, and policy decisions regarding the operation of the system tend to be made by the sponsoring agency. The reference coordinate datum to which they relate is largely defined by the system controllers. The satellites must be placed in suitable orbit. The orbiting control stations are invisible to the user. Position determination is most conveniently performed in relation to a three-dimensional datum. The coordinates of the orbiting control stations change with time and must be continually updated. Errors in both coordinates and satellites and the ephemerides?
Ephemerides, yeah.
Ephemerides. And in the measurements themselves will affect the final quality of the position determination. And then it says consequences for the satellite deployment strategy. There are important consequences in replacing hundreds of thousands of geodetic control stations on the ground at separations ranging from 10 to thousands of kilometers by orbiting control stations. Number one, to provide a globally 24-hour service, a constellation of satellites must be deployed. However, their total number must be a minimum. High altitude satellites gives good coverage, but satellite ground geometry may be weak unless observations are made over very long distances. Low-altitude satellites must closely mimic the function of the ground-based control stations, but too many would be required to ensure global coverage. They also travel at a high speed relative to the ground and hence are not visible and only visible, hence are only visible for short amounts of times. A compromise needs to be reached as far as satellite altitude. To ensure reliability, redundancy should be built into the system, for example, by having more than the minimum number of satellites. So then it says here, consequences for surrendering national control. as a satellite-based positioning system is likely to be developed, funded, and controlled by one nation, usually the military agency. The reason I read this is because anytime you read something from the United States, since they are the controlling entity, so it's better to go find documents from like Australia, because I figure if you're going to find any kind of hidden thing, Australians are going to, and this is what this paper is saying, it's all about geodetic surveying, but they're saying, here's the problem with giving the United States all of the control with the GPS. So it says satellite.
That's probably why the Russians are developing their system, and the Chinese are developing theirs. And
okay, so it says as a satellite-based positioning system is likely to be developed, funded, and controlled by one nation, usually the military agency, then operation of the system is firmly vested in the hands of one agency within one country, and the influence of most users is small. Decisions that affect the coordinate datum of the system are not necessarily made with the global users in mind. That's a huge thing right there. What the hell are they talking about? Why would somebody say that? Decisions that affect the coordinate datum of the system are not necessarily made with the global user in mind, meaning they could just make up anything, and it doesn't matter. So if the system controllers are opposed to certain classes of users, they can restrict or change the datum system and restrict system access or performance for such users. I mean, that's crazy to hear because none of us would know that. That's what this paper is saying, that they could just change it and nobody would know that it's been changed. I don't know. That's crazy to me. I have a problem with that whenever I hear something like that. And believe me, and I know you and I agree, the one reason I like talking to Jesse is because he doesn't believe everything that Wikipedia says. So I have a problem with people that are those, because to me, they're not, no, I don't want to say they're not worth talking to, but I can go look at Wikipedia if I want to know a lot of these people's opinions, because they are verbatim. If Wikipedia says it, it's true, and if Wikipedia doesn't, it's false. Well, at least Jesse has some beliefs that are certainly not mainstream, and that tells me that you're willing to look at things. But when you read things like this that say that they can just make a change in GPS and nobody would know, or it could be hidden from us, that's a problem to me, you know?
Well, I mean, I kind of know what they're talking about. I do. I mean, that was a lot of stuff to read there. But
right.
Hang on one second, please. I know what this call is. Please. Hi, Eva. Okay, honey. I'm going to call you right back.
Oh, so here's the...
Folks, listen, folks. I have to bail. Let me call you right back, Eva.
Okay,
I have to apologize. Listen, Jaron, the reason I postponed a couple weeks ago, I'm sorry to tell everybody this, but
no,
my relative has just passed, and I got this phone call.
Sorry to hear that.
I got to bail out.
No, we're quite sorry to hear that. Of course, take off. Now.
Listen,
we'll do it again, Jess.
Life is. I'm slow with the words here, but everybody, this is a man who he held in there. Oh, listen, I can't stay on. I wanted to say something.
Yeah, go, Jesse. Go take care of whatever you need to do.
I apologize, everyone.
No apology needed at all. Just please take care of yourself.
Jaron, let's do this again, please. I think we can get somewhere with this. All right,
I'll look in. Yeah.
Take care. Bye-bye.
That was unfortunate.
Yeah, very, very sorry to hear.
Don't want to hear that. And I wanted to apologize because I also didn't. I was at a auction all day today, so I didn't have time to get my stuff together as far as this GPS stuff I wanted to talk about. So I'm just end up reading nonsense. But next time I talk with Jesse, I'll make sure I have this stuff ready.
Yeah, we can definitely do these more often. I mean, we enjoy having these kind of conversations. I hope you guys do as well. Jeranism, you've been very nice to give up your time and talk about these things. I hope that you might want to continue. I find these dialogues to be interesting, even though we do kind of go over the same things more than once. But and that kind of can get tiresome. But I do think that people are interested in it. People do want to talk about these topics, or at least listen to it. So
I would love to have a more in-depth conversation about kind of my question earlier, because I think your answer was, I've asked that question to several of the flat earthers that we've had on previously, and I kind of haven't gotten a straightforward answer, but that was one that I wasn't kind of expecting, and
Well, I think I look at things a little bit more deeply, not to say to other flat earthers, but I recognize the job that science has done to rid the world of being in the control of the church, which is where we would be if it wasn't for science. And I respect that and appreciate that. But I also think if at some point in doing that you were wrong about something, then you need to admit it and be about what it's about. And I do think if they were ever realized they were wrong about the shape of the earth, that in order to keep science where it is, and in order to keep people in the positions that they are, and these guys have jobs and statuses, and if there was a threat to the establishment of science, I do think that they would go to the lengths like employing NASA to fake things, or again, those are my opinions. I'm just saying that they would go to those steps in order to maintain their position of being, because you would have to admit that if the Earth got found out to be flat, which then kind of does away with the idea of the Big Bang, what would happen after that would be a shift of general humanity, kind of going back to this church-centered belief. And I don't want that anymore. You know, my position is that we need to be kind to each other and to forget about religions, and that's all nonsense. I mean, it's all, these guys have been running the world they still do. I mean, look at the president, he'll bow down to the Pope. And I mean, these things are still a problem in our world today, and they shouldn't be.
It's interesting, I think, to come across a flat earther that does not follow the religious aspect of it. So if the Big Bang wasn't a thing, how do you account for how the planet got here? You know, if you don't necessarily follow the religious aspect, what would be the option there?
Well, I do think that we were all created. I mean, I think that if you're talking about a God, well, the mistake is that we all recognize that the writers of the Bible were kind of ridiculous. They wrote about a God that had human tendencies, had human anger and human jealousy. Well, none of that makes any sense. So we should recognize that they were dumb, and the God that they wrote about is dumb. But what science has done is taken the position of, well, then there is no God. Because these dumb people said things about a dumb God, that means that there isn't one. I think that's a ridiculous statement to make. I think we need to look at things and say, you know, the order that is in the world, the amount of animals and species and the way that nature works, it's not accidental unless you want to be one of these science people that will go into the idea of there's every type of universe and we just happen to live in the one where everything works, you know, or everything amounts to what we see. I don't believe that. I don't think that I just happen to exist in this universe. I don't think I live in the 50-year period of time that human beings were on this big spinning rock in space and realized how old the entire system is and can measure when it started to 1/1000th of a second after the Big Bang. I think that that's just men with their egos thinking that they know those things. I don't think they know them. I don't think it can be determined how long the Earth's been here at all. I don't think it's even close. I mean, there's so many things wrong with it. But again, I understand it's a makeup that they've built. They've built this story, and it works, I guess, except for they, you know, can't really show how life came or whatever. But to me, my belief is simply that I can look out and say that we're different than animals. We're not animals. I mean, are we like animals? Do we have some common qualities? And are we made up of basically the same thing? Well, yes. But human beings are clearly the only thing that can think, the only thing that can comprehend before their life began.
Well, that's not correct. That's not correct.
Well, so there's animals out there that can comprehend after they die?
I'm not. I mean, I can't speak for. I can't speak for the animals. But what you just said that they can't think. Obviously, they can. I mean, they can think.
We know that animals have some kind of consciousness. We know that they're even levels
they have
of
morality.
Sentience.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that there's a clear step between, like, if you think that apes in, let's say, I don't know how long you want to put it, in 5 million years, will be able to build and construct jet aircraft and fly them around the world.
No.
We are apes, and we build them now.
Yeah.
But let me ask you real quick. Because you said something about science I found interesting. You had said something along the lines of science eliminates God or something like that. I've enjoyed science and read about science since I was a kid, and I've never read a book ever in science book that has ever said anything toward the nature of God. Not one single textbook, not one written nonfiction book. There's never been anything. Hang on. There's never been a course that I took where science had anything to do with God. They're completely unrelated to each other. Science strictly gives us explanations for natural phenomenon, and models that work predictively. So we can rely on a model to say this is based upon the model what we would have an expectation to be. It has nothing to do with God. Matter of fact, it doesn't answer the question of God. If you want to talk about God, that'd be more philosophy or theology. But science is set up where it doesn't have anything to do with those types of metaphysical or meta-ethical things. It was strictly to say, we haven't observed a phenomenon. We will find a naturalistic explanation to that phenomenon. That is all science is supposed to do. And it does it very, very well.
And if there was things outside of the naturalistic explanation, then they would never be able to be determined by science.
Science would not be the tool to use against that, correct. And that's how science is set up to be.
And do you think that the majority of the world understands that, or does the majority of the world think because science won't say that this exists, that it must not?
Science doesn't say that.
He would be true on that, I think.
No. Science never says that. Science does not say God does not exist. There's nowhere.
I didn't say God. I didn't say that. I said for instance, have you ever done the rice experiment?
What rice experiment? Refresh my memory. I'm sorry.
So if you took 3 jars, go cook some rice tonight, put an equal amount of rice in 3 jars, mark one of them love, one of them hate, one of them neutral, and over the course of the next month, go to the love rice every day at the same time and say nice things to it. Go to the rice that says anger and yell and scream at it and call it an effing loser, and then don't say anything to the neutral rice. Have you done that for a month?
I have never done that experiment. However, I've seen experiments with plants using a similar methodology.
Is that a real thing?
Well, they use. I don't know anything about rice, and I thought when you said rice experiment, I was thinking about proper name.
Hang on. There's somebody walking around yelling at rice for 30 days.
Well, they've done it with plants, so it wouldn't surprise me.
But there's no science does not have an answer for why.
I have never seen studies on that where that hadn't made a bit of difference.
Well, the reason why is because science can't put, you have to have a quantitative amount of how much anger or how much love I put into the yelling at the rice. Well, that's impossible according to science.
I've never seen an experiment, though, what you're referring to, where there was a differentiation between the two things.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that there is no measurement of what I'm talking about. Yet, I just explained the experiment. If anybody does it, at the end of a month, you'll have the one rice that was the angry rice that will look black and moldy, and the rice that you told nice things to will look edible. And that means that our emotions, our words can change reality. We are actually affecting the structure, the molecules that make up that rice. So when you look at the world,
now you've done this experiment yourself, then?
Absolutely.
Okay, so how about we set something up? I'm not going to be the one to do this experiment, trust me. But we can set something up.
I'm actually interested in doing that. I think that would be.
It would be world breaking, right? So this is what we've been trying to yell forever, and you hear Steve is laughing.
Well, because hang on, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing only because I've seen similar experiments and they've all failed.
What do you mean failed?
They've done similar experiments with plants.
Actually, I'm looking at it now, and the plant succeeded too.
Yeah, the plants grow. The plants.
The only time they had a success rate when they found out there was I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think moisture from the spit or something. I don't remember what it was.
No. You have to
under controlled conditions, there's never been an instance where somebody's saying something. As a matter of fact, Mythbusters did a very good experiment on this.
Here's what my point is, though. What you're saying is what science would have to say. This is what I'm trying to point out, that science has to protect who it says it is. If something came up that science couldn't measure or couldn't explain, that would be a problem for science. So people need to recognize that I'm telling you to do the experiment yourself because I had to witness it. I saw people talking about it. I'm like, yeah, right. I mean, put the lids on the jars. There is nothing. You have 3 jars. You take the lid off. You dump the rice in. You close the lids as tight as possible. You'll never open them up again. And as long as you're the only one that can determine, did you really do the experiment with the kind of belief that you need to do, which is take one of them and yell at it, take one of them and hug it and love it. I'm telling you, when you do it, it'll crazy.
Hug some rice, people.
I'm
hug some rice.
Right now, and even the MythBusters one had positive results.
So here, check this out. So we have
this shit right. This is crazy.
So we have the mainstream news out there who is in charge of telling you every day, this white cop shot this black guy, this thing went on, we had this school shooting, we had this war going on. What people don't realize is that is why the world is the way it is because by putting out that negative energy, they are creating a negative world.
I'll agree with you on that. I will agree with you on that point. I do not follow the flat Earth model, and I cannot get there. But what you just said, I think, is very accurate.
Well, I think I have to disagree. I think it was very wrong.
Well, there's somebody.
But let me explain why. One, none of these were controlled conditions where they had a proper experimental controls. Second of all, you said...
Yes, they did. I'm reading it.
Well, no, I'm familiar with this. This goes back to the 70s. They were doing these experiments with music and rock and roll and playing Mozart compared to Led Zeppelin.
Oh,
I'm looking at it right now.
Steve, I've personally done the test where I put headphones on water. I measured the water before the test, and you get your parts per million, like I think 498 or something was my parts per million in both waters. And then I put Bach music on one and rock music on the other, and it reduced the parts per million in the one like 200 parts per million.
There's been instances where they had louder music because of the louder volume, something like that, had come more agitation. But I don't know what your experiment was.
But
hang on one sec. I want to clarify one thing else. You said science has to do something. Science doesn't have to do anything. Matter of fact, the biggest grants out there are... Hang on, if I may. Science's biggest grants, the biggest money makers out there is when science cannot explain something. That's when people make the money.
That's the story that you're being told, Steve. Steve, that's what people think. Just like when Neil deGrasse gets up there and says, oh, and I do an experiment, and then a rival scientist, he wants to do an experiment. He wants to see if I'm right. Well, if there's a scientist doing a science experiment on evolution, and then he comes out and publishes his report, there is nobody out there that says, I'm a scientist that doesn't believe in evolution. I'm going to go try and see if his report is right. They just all accept it. That's the problem with science, is they built themselves a echo chamber, and then they call it peer review. Well, yeah, everybody in the peer review already believes what you believe. So
I don't know if I'd go that far personally. Well, I want to touch on one point that you just said, and I think this is important to say. The plants thing, I mean, I don't know. I'm just going by what I'm reading here. But what you said about the news, I think, is 100% correct. I think that that repetitive negativity and just being told something over and over and over again all day long, I think that has a detrimental effect on people. So So
who's in charge?
But that's a red herring, though. How do you apply that to science? Science is promoting actual facts. It's not promoting news, which can be controlled and manipulated.
No, I'm not.
Facts are what comport with reality. Science doesn't care what people think. Science can only care what the empirical data shows.
I think that's provable.
Well, science doesn't prove anything.
I'm saying I think you could get data off of that for sure.
I tell you what, we might have people willing to do this experiment in real time and set up on a 24-hour feed. Do you have a name you want to call it? I mean, other than the Rice experiment, because I did think that was a proper name. What would you like to call this particular experiment if somebody wants to do it?
Actually, I saw something in the live chat just a second ago. Let me.
Rice Lives Matter. I like that one. Rice Lives Matter.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Oh, that is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people should all try it. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try something, and if you get different results, because I've only done it once, but the results were drastic. And
what was your null hypothesis, if I may?
Huh? What
was your null hypothesis on that?
Well, my hypothesis was that it wouldn't work.
No,
but I mean,
but your null hypothesis. What was your basically? I'm asking, what was your p-value and what was your significant alpha that you used?
You talking about like the neutral Rice?
For your entire experiment, how did you decide if you can reject the null hypothesis to accept the claim of the hypothesis?
Because at the end of 30 days, when one rice is black and one is white, what do you mean? Do you
know what a p-value is?
No.
Okay.
So explain to me what you're talking about.
When you do an experiment, you basically have what's called a p-value. 0.05 is usually acceptable, and you have to get over that statistically to actually say that I'm going to reject the null hypothesis.
If one rice is black and one is white, that would go over 0.5, I think.
That's what I'm saying, is that you need to do it yourself. Because
you're going to do an experiment, you have to actually formulate it correctly, and that's one of the...
Okay, so you can do that, because I'm saying that all I did was just yell at one rice and hug the other one and tell it how good it was.
What were you yelling at it?
F and everything. I'm just yelling at it.
Just pejoratives left and right?
Oh yeah,
like you slept with its sister, you ate his mother or something. You had,
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and
you rock naked.
Did you really hug the rice, Jeranism?
Did you hug the rice or did you hug the jar?
The jar.
Okay.
You can't go inside the jar.
Okay.
You're not allowed to go inside the jar.
All right, so you're a rice hugger.
I'm a rice jar hugger. Come on, get it right.
Yeah. My mind is blown right now. Like I don't think I can.
Well, I would love to just see your guys' results after 30 days, because I would love to. I mean, and the thing is that the reason, because people...
We're going to do this. We're going to do this.
People ask me, why didn't you post your results? Why didn't you show them? And the reason is because I thought it was more important for people to do it themselves. I could just post it and then people say I lied about it. And they would say that.
Do you have any scientists doing this experiment? Do you have a peer review paper of a scientist of any kind? Okay.
What I'm saying is that science would not accept this as a proper result because there is no measurement. How are you going to measure, Steve, how much love you put into the rice?
Well, they necessarily wouldn't be love. They would probably find other factors that were causing it: heat transfer, humidity, agitation.
So,
you have to have
what I'm
control
saying
conditions.
is that if it is our emotions,
That's reaching,
how
I
would
think.
science?
That's not
how would
reaching. That's how science is done.
Okay, so this is exactly my point. My point is the way science is done rules out the results that come with this experiment.
No,
so
that's not how it works, Darren.
Hold on, I'm trying to tell you. If it is our emotions, if it is what we say, how would we measure that? And you're saying that it cannot be that.
Okay, let me ask you this. If it was emotions, what methodological approach would you take to determine it was the emotion causing the change?
That's not his point.
No, it is the point. No, that's the core question. Look, if you're
That's
going to
not his point.
But he
His
is making the
point is-
argument that it's the emotion causing the change. Are you not, Jeranism?
I'm saying that our intentions are what we the way that we present things. Like for instance, it changed my life. When my dog used to bark in the backyard, I would turn around and yell like, "Shut up! Shut the F up!" I would get pissed at my dog because he would just be barking in the backyard. Since that day, I've never done that because I realized that me yelling at the dog like that, it breaks the dog down. Then you look at people with Alzheimer's. Do people have Alzheimer's simply because their family members start treating them like old kind of nothings? Their husband and wife, there's no love there anymore. And so they break down and their mind kind of deteriorates. That's the kind of shit that could be a result of our words. Like we can change. Now my wife and I tell each other every day how good looking we are, how young we look, because
You're beautiful.
Hey, thank you. But maybe that helps us. We don't. And what I'm saying is science won't allow that kind of research because it's like you're saying it can't be that.
Well, let me get back to my question though. Again, and I think I've demonstrated, and people can. We'll talk about this in the after show, but I think we've demonstrated there's no control groups, there was no null hypothesis, there was no elimination of other factors. But hang on. Let me say real quick. Look at. You need to determine. Are you advocating that is the emotion causing the change? Is that your claim?
Yes, there has to be something that's causing the breakdown in one jar of the molecules and the making it decrepit, and the other one allows to be look healthy.
Okay, and you're claiming that is due to emotional. We'll call it emotional waves. How about that? Is that simple enough?
It's
just something to call it. Okay. So, what methodological approach are you going to use to determine it is some kind of emotional waves that is making the change? Is my question.
According to science, there is no way to do that, and that's my point.
Well, then you can't make that claim. You have to be able to demonstrate that claim.
Okay, then science needs to recognize that it is not everything that there is in life because there's other things happening that science can't explain.
But that's not that. I think you're missing the point. The science will find a naturalistic explanation. That's what science does. You're saying now you have a claim that you can't demonstrate through science. You can't demonstrate at all. Okay. And you can't say that the method you use is what caused what you're claiming happened.
Before we keep going around in circles, what he's saying, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're told how science has to be all the time and you cannot vary away from it. But there are some things that they do not or cannot measure and that those things have an impact. So you're stuck in a situation where you are being told that you can't measure it this way, but they also can't come around and measure that result either.
Then it's not science.
Like that.
But that's the whole point.
But it's
so arguing that it's not science or whatever is exactly his point.
But then why do a scientific experiment?
Well,
if you say you can't use science to determine what your claim is, why bother doing a scientific experiment to begin with?
I just told you it can have huge implications on all of our lives, and that doesn't even matter to you.
But you can't demonstrate the reason is what you claim it to be.
But I'm telling you to go do the experiment yourself.
I think we're going to have people. Somebody in the live chat said scientist Mel. You think she would probably do it? I think she might. Maybe.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Actually, I don't know who came up with that. It was too fast. Sorry. Even on slow mode, the chat's going by really quickly. But
I don't know if
not a bad
it's true about how well, like if you could speed it up. I mean, I noticed it right after about a week and a half. But like if we did it, you yell at it every 5 minutes. Maybe it could happen.
Nobody could be able to do that every 5 minutes. I don't.
Well, what I'm saying is, I don't know if that's true. If it can be scaled or whatever. I mean, this took a month until you could.
Well, that's why you need the controls. You need to say, you're going to yell this amount at this decibel level, this far away. You need to have control conditions when you do an experiment.
Okay, but you're saying that we need to have controlled conditions. But how do you control, like, for instance, if we have a mother that raises her child by yelling at him every day and another mother that says nice things to their child every day, what is the scientific way to research that? We can't. Then
but
what
that's
you're
not
saying,
rice. That's not an empirical thing.
Hold on, but I'm saying that does those things exist? Do you think that if a mother raised her child every day by yelling at them and saying that they're garbage and they're a piece of junk, and another mother raised their child by telling them, hey, you're a really smart individual and you do great at this drawing, whatever, do you think that there would be a difference between those two children at the end of the day?
It has absolutely nothing to do with the topic. Rice is not biologically alive.
It does have everything to do with the topic.
It's cooked rice, at least. Cooked rice is not alive. By the way, was this cooked or not cooked rice?
It was cooked.
Okay.
How does science explain? How can we measure those things, though?
But that's not what science does. You're taking science out of the parameter of what science does. Science observes natural phenomenon. Okay. Psychology is a completely different field. Theology is a completely different field. And so, if you want to do this experiment, what I would recommend, and I think that people would probably agree with this, why don't you draft up a experimental procedure? And say, this is how we want the procedure to be done. We'll get it to Mel, who's a scientist, and maybe see if she'll want to take it upon herself to do the experiment.
We'll be doing this for sure.
Are you going to do it, Kyle? Well, you still need a plan. You still need an experiment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you still need a procedure.
But how do you say how much love to give the right? I don't understand what you mean.
Right, that's what you have to come up with. You need to say, this is the procedure we're going to use to demonstrate that emotions will change the color of rice. And you have a hypothesis.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if I could tell people that, but how can you even follow up to see did the people actually love the rice? Like you have to.
That's how you have to determine that as your experiment.
But I did it for myself, and I know that I actually grabbed the rice and with the feeling inside me said, "You're a good rice." You know, you're.
Well, I'm getting a weird image of that. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
It's a weird image.
Yeah, it's
we're
cool.
going to contract that part out.
Wait. So I want to make sure, and I want to clarify this. Did the rice give consent?
No, it was actually against its will.
Oh man, see, rice lives matter, man.
I do not agree with you on the flat Earth issue, but on this issue, I fully agree with.
You think emotions change the color of the rice, Kyle?
What?
You think emotions can have an effect on the molecular structure of the rice?
I haven't done it yet, so I can't say one way or the other. But what I'm saying is, I'm not going to be so closed-minded as to shut it off, especially based on what I just read through online with the plants.
Would it change your life, like that kind of experiment that you do in front of you, and you say you have to do it a few times? I don't know if one's not enough, but if you actually saw a noticeable difference, meaning one rice is gross and decrepit, and the other one looks like you would open it up and eat it. I don't recommend that, by the way. But if it looked that way, would that change the way you look at life?
And not unless there's a way to find out methodologically if it was the emotion causing the change. That's science.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a bad way.
I think completely both are wrong. I understand how scientific methodology works. You have to if you have a claim, you need to have a mechanism or causal relationship of what you're claiming is causing the molecular change. You can't just say, it became black, therefore it's because I say it became black because of this. That's not how science works.
He's telling you to do it yourself.
But you don't. But you're not understanding that if you do the experiment, you still have to provide a mechanism by which the emotion caused the discoloration.
Says who?
That's how science works. Because that's how you determine that was the cause.
And that's the problem with science.
That's not the problem with science. That's the problem with a bad experiment.
Wow. I will go in circles forever on this one.
I know, but you know what? I mean, this was the best. I love this. This was actually I enjoyed better than Flat Earth stuff.
It's a difference of just the way that I think people think. Some people are more apt to thinking on the I have to have a reason for everything that I do side. I'm a creative person. I think in terms of I daydream a lot, and so I tend to think that. I mean, look, if you just look simply at the way that you interact with your dog can tell the difference between.
But a dog is alive.
Wait. I'm not saying that rice is any way related to a dog. I'm just using it as an example.
But they are.
I think that in certain instances that energies can affect things. I don't know because I haven't done it, but I'm not going to cut it out.
Well, I've eliminated that because I've been there and done that.
Doing the experiment, because now that is not science.
Yeah, no, but I'm older than you guys. I'm pushing 50. I remember when all this woo-woo stuff was going around.
But see, you call it woo-woo. Do you understand that what you're doing is you're creating a place where you will not open your mind to other suggestions?
No, I will. If somebody presents the experiment properly, But so far there's been no proper experimentation.
You see, you haven't looked into it, but you're willing to say that because you know that science can't measure those things.
I don't believe science can measure the qualitative analysis of emotions. I mean, there's no metric to say how much love you have for somebody. You don't measure it in joules or Kelvin or anything.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there's no metric for that.
The point.
That's why you don't use science to measure those things. It's not quantitative.
But could it be true?
What does that mean? Can it be true?
Could it be actual my emotions changing the rice?
Sure, it could be true. Why not? I'm all for that. But I mean, it has to be demonstrated.
So if something is true, like if everybody in the world did it, Steve, and it worked for everybody, and science couldn't measure the reason or the amount of love put in, would it still be true in your mind, or would you say, well, science can't measure it, so we're all deluded?
No, it would not matter until you found that mechanism to relate the emotion to the molecular change. I'm telling you, that's how science works.
You're saying that it can't be done, and then
I didn't say it can't be done. I said that science does not give a quantitative thing to emotions. Now, if you think there's a way to do it, by all means, draft it up.
So are emotions not true then?
But
emotions
are a noun. Nouns are not true or false. You don't say chair is true or chair is false.
But love is not true?
But that's a non sequitur. Oh, I don't get it.
How do you measure love, though?
Oh, boy.
The existence of love, you're talking about the existential nature of love. Love exists, but you can't say love is true, love is false. That's a noun. Nouns are not propositional
states. Oh, that's
states.
bullshit. That's complete bullshit.
Okay.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
I mean,
this could be a great after show. I love this.
In what world is love not a true or false
Because
thing?
a propositional state must have a truth apt thing to it.
Push the big words aside for a second and talk about like real, actual things that people have an interaction with. Is love a true thing or not?
You have to define what you mean. Does it exist?
No, I don't have. Do I have to define what love is? Love is.
Yeah, because it could be emotional, it could be chemical, biological, brain states.
Everybody together.
Yeah. See, again, love is basically a brain state. It literally is a brain state. I mean, it's chemicals.
Now you're just fighting to be fighting.
No, I'm serious. You can't just say love is true. I don't know what you mean by that.
Genuine stance.
I'm gonna love this after show. I'm kind of curious what people think. I could be way off. If people want to like diss on me and think that I'm way off, I would be more than happy to further the conversation on that particular subject. I found it more interesting than the Geodesy, because honestly I've never heard of Geodesy until you guys have brought it up.
Well, and this kind of is what sucks for me, because I originally got into this whole idea because I became an atheist after getting out of religion and realizing that was all nonsense. And when I became an atheist and started looking into science, I saw these problems with it, that it is in and of itself, it created its own religion where things that I know to be true, like emotions, like love, cannot be measured, cannot be. So that doesn't tell me that they don't exist. I'm not willing to take that step. I'm willing to say, well, there's science over there that says that the world operates in a certain way that I disagree with. And people like you will tell me I'm not allowed to disagree with science. That
I never said that. Wait, when did I say that?
So did you not tell me last time with Soundly that Shoemaker-Levy hitting Jupiter and fragments going around it was an observational fact?
We gave you pictures of that, or somebody did. I think was it Soundly that found the pictures? He didn't find pictures for you? Really?
I don't know if you're talking about the same things that I saw that are like
I've seen the impacts that Shoemaker-Levy 9 left on big black holes, and I don't mean like black hole, but big black spots on Jupiter.
In the gas in Jupiter, there was black holes because of a comet.
When I say black holes, I mean black spots. I specifically said not black holes like a black hole like you think of as a black hole, but there were black spots. Yeah, it penetrated the atmosphere, and there was dark spots because of it. You can see it.
Of that. That
Please,
is true.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's what I'm saying. You're saying that is true, but can somebody show me the pictures?
I thought Soundly already sent that to you. If he didn't, I'm sure.
Where to? In the Hangout?
I don't know. I thought he sent it to you. I thought he sent a video to you. I thought it's in the outside chat that day.
Now this is it. Well, that's interesting. What are you saying that happened?
Yeah, what do you think happened with Shoemaker-Levy 9?
I certainly don't think it's what they say.
What do you think it says?
They say that a meteor hit Jupiter that we could see.
That was not a meteor. That was a comet.
Comet, sorry.
Okay.
So when you go look at that video, it's clearly not real. I don't know how to else explain it, because you guys will call it observational fact because somebody's showing you a video and saying it's real, but nobody's questioning, is it actually real? Because
let me ask you this. Do you believe that planets like Jupiter exist?
No, not you. If you're talking about in the size and makeup that they tell us, no, it doesn't. No.
Just
Why
in
is
general, there's no other planets on the outside of our existence here.
No, not places that you can go to. No, not like a planet, like a big structure of land or whatever, because it doesn't even make sense. I mean, why does the Earth collect all of the matter, but Jupiter just collects gas?
That's not how it actually works.
Well, it's gravity, right? So
yeah, but there's a reason why the inner planets are more rocky than the outer planets, because gas tends to go to the edge when the nebula was spinning, because it was a planetary nebula. So you tend to have more gaseous go to the edge and rocky in the center.
This is the problem with science. You've looked at the way that things are set up, and then you've come up with reason like, oh, well, there must be rock in the middle. And
well,
then
it's physics, because we understand math and physics. I mean, we know physics tends to throw out things at different, like a centrifuge, right? And we know that gases will tend to accumulate near the edge of that spinning accretion disk.
So, okay.
But then there is Pluto out there.
Well, there's remnants of icy bodies, but Pluto was actually not even a real planet. It's a minor dwarf planet, but that's just remnants. But there's, like I said, these have been modeled by computer things. Now, if somebody thinks they're wrong, that's fine, but they need to come up with a computer model that explains it from their perspective.
Well, I don't need to do that.
I'm wondering how you explain like stars and things that you can actually look up in the sky and
fusion.
See.
No, you talking about me or?
Yeah, I don't know. He's asking. Fusion.
Like what?
I don't know. I wish I knew. I do think that we have the ability to find these things out, but I certainly don't think that what they're telling us is the case. I do not think that they are suns at all.
Well, there's only one sun. They're stars. Sun is a type of star.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I do not think that they're like. I do not think the sun is a star. Then, if that's what you want to say.
You don't think the sun is a star? Okay.
Well, I don't think that there's something. I don't think we can see 25 trillion miles away. I mean, if they say that the sun is the size of a pea. If you hold a pea up at arm's length distance, the sun is the size of a pea, right? So just by doing the inverse square law of light, if you try and figure out what the size of a star would be at, figure what the light is. I mean, the sun is 8 light minutes away from us, right? So now double that distance and we're 16 light minutes away. Double that distance again, we're a half light hour. Double it again, we're at a light hour. Double it again, we're at a light 2 hours. Think of how many times you'd have to go to get to where they say these stars are. You wouldn't see a thing.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. We'll make a prediction, for example. We'll say that if there's some kind of fusion process going on, we'll call it proton-proton reaction, it'll produce a certain photon or certain neutrino, depending on the type of reaction. So we should be able to, if that type of reaction going on, we should detect this neutrino or photon at a certain frequency, a certain wavelength. Hang on. So we'll make a prediction and say, if we find neutrinos at this very specific energy level, that is confirmation that there is that type of fusion reaction going on in the sun, is it not?
My thing would be, we see that the sun is as a light. Okay, so if you're saying that we look at the makeup of the stars and they are also light, that means that something. I mean, do you think somebody has seen an electron before?
Yes. We've seen electron clouds,
but no one's ever actually seen an electron.
Well, that's not beside the point. That doesn't answer my question. We've detected the neutrinos in very, very deep salt mines. We have neutrinos detectors, big vats full of chlorine water. I believe it's chlorinated water, and we've had these scintillation detectors. And when a photon or neutrino comes in this case, there's a neutrino. There are both, but a neutrino will come in, and neutrinos tend not to interact with mass a lot. It's very penetrative. So a neutrino will hit a scintillation detector, and that scintillation detector will multiply, called a photomultiplier tube, and then that actually will cause a spike. It'll actually have a signal. So we know when these neutrinos are being detected, and we will test the energy level of that neutrino. It perfectly matches the predictions of what we would find if the sun is a fusion reactor. So how is that explained if we predicted it, this is what we're looking for, and it wasn't only until, in the last decade or so, that we've actually determined that is a confirmation of what we would expect the fusion reaction would be?
I don't know. To me, I just think that what you're just trusting people, and people are not trustworthy. They're not. You're just taking everything that's being told to you, these neutrinos and these things that have the chlorine and the things are coming in. You're just believing that, and I'm not saying that it's not necessarily true, because I'm not going to make that claim. I'm just saying it's a little bit scary when you start accepting everything that comes across your desk as being approved by science. Because if it wasn't, for instance, if I had to go do an experiment like LIGO for 5 years and it cost the government $2.2 $1 billion. Well, you're damn well right that at the end of that experiment, I'm going to discover gravity waves, because if I didn't, then why would I ever expect to get another grant after I said, I know we just built that factory down there for $2.2 billion and it didn't do anything, but now I want $2 billion to do something else.
Do you realize that most of science is failures?
Okay, I'm saying that when you tell me about a thing.
And that LIGO was actually detected in 2 different locations on the planet Earth at 2 different detectors. Impossible to fake.
It is not impossible to. Oh my goodness! When you say things like that, you're telling me 2 people couldn't have both said that it showed up on their radar.
No, because they have recorded data of it. They have recorded data at the exact. Well, it wasn't the exact same time. There was a small micro second of difference, because it has to travel from one side of the Earth to the other. But the data, I mean, sure, there could be fine. There could be this vast conspiracy, and everybody that works at all the different LIGOs is on it. But
it doesn't have to be that way. It's a computer program that you could program the computer to output this wave. And guess what?
Do you have evidence of that?
Well, here's what I'm saying.
Wait. Do you have evidence of that?
Nope.
Okay, then if you cannot support something with evidence, then your claims are dismissed.
Then dismiss the claim. That's fine. Then never expect. I mean, if somebody came to you and said, I think your wife's cheating on you, and you just said, do you have evidence of this? Well, no. Nope, I'm dismissing the claim completely. Well, great. Then I hope she continues it. Because if you won't listen to the ideas that maybe
is you cheating on your wife a scientific claim?
Say it again?
Is cheating on your wife a scientific claim?
I don't know.
Okay, well, this is a scientific claim. This is science saying they've detected the gravitational wave through. Actually, I think there's 3 out there now, and there's going to put one in outer space here soon. So you're saying, though, forget everything you know about science. It's more likely. Are you saying it's more likely that there's a huge conspiracy and that they all fabricated the computers, programming and fudged the numbers, or just because there's a possibility? Therefore, forget what we know about science.
When I'm saying what we know about life and taking pictures and how things work, when there's no pictures of the Earth, there's no photographs of the Earth.
Well, there is pictures. You just don't accept them.
It's not that I want to accept. Show me a picture of the Earth. If you show me the Himawari, that is clearly done in segments. You can see the segments on the.
But that doesn't mean each individual photo isn't real. When you have.
But could that be mapped on a ball? Could it be pictures of a level plane that are mapped onto a ball? We wouldn't know, because we don't get to see what the pictures are taken. They take 10 minutes.
They do. No, the Himawari, first of all, Himawari 8 has raw data, and it takes 4K images every 10 minutes.
Right, and then it takes 10 minutes for you to get the images.
Okay, so you're thinking that somebody's sitting behind a computer rendering 4K images that you can actually look up and see the same clouds that the Himawari satellite is doing. So somebody is walking outside going, let me look at the sky and let me make an image of this. That's resolution of 4K. I think it's higher than that now.
We have high-altitude planes and Doppler radar. We're able to get the cloud formations without having to be 22,000 miles away.
And so this is one person making an image every 10 minutes. No, it's multiple people making it. Okay.
And it goes through a computer. There's nobody even sitting there doing it. Why would you need it?
Oh, it's all automatic. Just computer rendering it. So it's computer rendering this CGI or something.
It's not CGI. They're taking real images of the clouds and the Earth, and they're putting them onto a ball. That's what they do.
Okay, so you agree they're real images then, right?
Sure.
Okay. Well, that's a good. That's the start. I mean, there are people out there that think the images aren't real from Himawari. And by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, I think Sean's in the live chat. They are putting up the Himawari 9 soon.
If you take images of me, and then you take images of me or at the beach boardwalk in Santa Cruz, somebody can make a composite image of both those images. Now,
what is a composite?
True?
What is a composite?
That's what I'm asking you.
A composite is Yes, a composite is full. But hang on. Each individual picture is a real picture, and then a composite is those pictures put together because it doesn't have you can't take a whole picture of something if you're looking at it from a not very high altitude, right? I can't take a picture of my entire house if I'm standing in front of the door, right? So as I'm moving across the house, I can take segments, right, and I can put those together to form a collage or a composite, but that's still individual real pictures. And there is an actual real picture of the Earth. It's from the Discover satellite from L1, if I'm not mistaken, and that's about 1 million miles away or something like that, 900 and some odd thousand miles away. That's from L1. I think that's entire. I think that's entire. I don't think that's a composite, if I'm not mistaken.
So you're talking about the one that we've seen the moon go across?
Yes, the Discover.
Okay, so why isn't the moon the color of the full moon?
Well, that's a different topic, and I mean, let's talk about I don't like when people go from one topic to another. Is that not a full image because it's from L1, right?
Well, I have reason to doubt that image is real, yes.
Okay, you have reason to doubt, but you need to explain why it's not real. You need some kind of expertise to show why it's not real.
I just told you, when we look at the moon, number one, from Earth, now granted we're in the atmosphere, so then I say, well, where is there a picture of the moon outside the atmosphere? Oh, good, they went to the moon. So I go look at Apollo 11 film and 12 and 14 and 15 of them going to the moon, and the moon is the bright rock in the sky. So then when the camera is 1,000,000 miles from Earth and here goes the moon going by, which means you're on the side of the sun, and the moon goes by and stays this dark gray because they've told us all it's the dark side of the moon, and we don't get to see a full moon, then I have every reason to say that's fucking bullshit.
Well, yeah, anybody can say that. You need to demonstrate it using science, though.
I just.
But
did,
you asked,
so,
but you asked for a picture of a complete non-composited picture. And that picture from Discover Mail 1, I don't, and correct me if I'm wrong, somebody knows more about this than I am, but I don't believe that's a composite picture.
It is. It's in 3 bands. I mean, it's in 3 different color bands, and then
well, yeah, but that color band's not a composite.
Okay, so I was saying that there's reason for me to doubt that image when they've shown me a moon go by that looks as completely fake as they get.
But anybody can doubt anything. That's my point.
Great.
Right? If anybody has this doubt, that's fine. But until somebody can demonstrate, that doubt makes no difference.
Okay, and I'll leave it at this, and I'll be done. This is the problem I see here is that if you believe that science is telling you the truth, then there's nothing anybody. It's like Wolfie's 60-20. If you think that you cannot be fooled, he's actually told me before it's impossible to fool him about where he lives. Okay, once you've made that statement, then every bit of evidence I ever bring will always be rejected. That's just the way it's going to be.
Well, I don't know who. I don't know. Well, I know Wolfie, but I mean, I don't agree with that. I think that anybody given enough evidence can change their position. But but there are certain things that have epistemic certainty. Like I know 1 + 1 = 2. However, even with epistemic certainty, I could be wrong. Okay, I don't have absolute certainty, because absolute certainty I don't particularly believe exists, but there are some arguments to be had on that. But I have enough certainty within the realm of the epistemic framework that I have to know 1 + 1 = 2, because it's analytically correct. It's defined that way.
For instance, what would you say are the percent chances that it is correct that the closest star to the Earth is 25 trillion miles away?
Well, the closest star is 93 million miles. Which is a couple.
No, I said the closest star. You just said earlier. Okay, we're talking about
the sun is the closest star.
Okay, so I'm talking about besides the sun.
Well, the next closest star is Alpha Proxima, which is 4.2 light years away, and then is Alpha Centauri, which is 4.3.
Okay, so that's 25 trillion miles.
Sure,
so
I don't know what. Yeah, sounds about right. I mean, I don't know what converted into miles, but yeah.
Okay, so what are the chances that might not be correct?
Pretty slim.
How slim?
Marginally.
Under 1%?
Yeah, way under 1%.
Yes, I mean, that's crazy to me. I mean,
but see, you haven't looked. I mean, it could be crazy to you, but unless you have the expertise to actually show that it's not that far away, it doesn't matter.
Here's the problem, though, is the people who have the expertise are the last people that would ever question what they've been taught.
Then get your expertise in it and be able to do it. But until you have the expertise to show people, it doesn't mean anything.
Okay, well, you have people that have astrophysics degrees like Neil deGrasse that have never been to space. He's never touched space. He's never gone to the moon. He's never been to stars. But we're giving people degrees as if it's a lie what he's learned.
Do you understand
in the book.
that it's an observational science? Astronomy is an observational science. It's not an experimental science.
Whatever you want to call it, that's fine. With
Okay.
regards, if it's a system of mathematical errors, which it could be, you've got this book that they've studied and they become astrophysicists and they get a degree. Do we give doctors MDs for never even touching a human?
Humans,
No,
but see, medical doctors is not an observational science. You know what observational science means?
Name another one.
No. Do you know what paleontology, history?
So it's a science based on what we can observe, but you can never know it's true?
No. Observational means that we cannot stick it in a jar and do an experiment on it. So things like dinosaurs, studying that. I mean, yeah,
Okay, so
we can examine the fossils, but we can't go back in time to validate it, right? We have to go by the evidence given now. So hang on, let me finish.
Does that mean that rice would be observational science?
No, that's experimental because you're doing an experiment.
But you're saying that there's less than a 1% chance that they could be wrong, but
Yes.
you're even able to admit it's just observing things and then making up a story that goes with it.
Well, you're saying they're making up a story. We're saying they actually use science to determine that why it's less than 1%.
You just said it was observational, so it's not even
because
something
you
they
can
test.
understand
That's not
things like
science.
parallax. You can understand math. I can show by parallax that a star is a certain distance
Yeah,
away
yeah.
by relationship to the fixed stars.
Parallax.
We've
is
known
a
that
result-
for a long time.
But parallax is a direct result of the Earth being in an orbit around the sun, because you're on one side. You're on one side of the planet when
Correct.
you measure it, and 6 months later you're on the other side. That would, in and of itself, create a parallax.
Yes, and how would you explain parallax if the Earth didn't go on the other side of the sun?
Because it would be the 12 hours later, and I would be it would be a different position.
No. The star itself in relationship to the background stars.
Okay.
That so obviously can only be if the Earth is going around the sun. There's no other options.
How can it only be if the Earth is going around? It's a requirement of the Earth going around the sun. That's what you're missing. It cannot.
That's how parallax works. Yes.
Right.
But let me ask you this. Because I know we probably need to wrap this up soon. So, here's what I think. And I don't know how I ended up in this discussion with you, but I'm finding it to be fascinating. Thank you. I appreciate it, Darren. So my argument is this. Then you can wrap it up. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. My argument is simple as this. People go to school for a long time and they work hard to get an education. We have a lot of people that have PhDs, master's degrees, bachelor's degrees. I almost have a bachelor's degree, but I spent my time in college. I've spent my time in nuclear power school. I did put forth some work to learn science, and then, of course, on my own. Until you put forth that work and are able to be on that level to say, this is why something's wrong, let me show you the physics and the math why it's wrong, epistemic uncertainty